Chapter 2459. Lin Sun's words were full of undisguised disdain. The cultivators who were terrified and in despair were dumbfounded at this moment, and they were completely thrown into disorder. Xie Shangshu, Mingya, Xiu Yunzi, and Yu Yang were also stunned, and their faces darkened. The revival of spiritual qi had been turbulent for 50 years. The four of them were the only four martial emperors in the lower realms who had managed to become martial emperors. Reaching this level was equivalent to completely breaking away from the scope of the secular world and could be called a real dominator who could overturn the sea and sink the mountains and rivers. But Lin Sun was still disdainful, which was undoubtedly the greatest contempt and provocation to them. If we make a big fuss here, I'm afraid we have to destroy the Forbidden City. Why don't we detain him and kill him outside the city? Is that okay? Xie Shangshu said coldly. That's great. After all, the Forbidden City is a holy place with countless creatures. We can't be the villains who slaughter the city and be condemned by thousands of people. Xiu Yunzi nodded reservedly. Mingya and Yu Yang naturally had no objection. Lin Sun couldn't help sneering. Old man, you're still bemoaning the state of the universe and pitying mankind. You're just worried that once the war starts, the famous mountains and blessed lands occupied by your orthodoxies will be destroyed. If you really care about these people, why did you set off so many bloody killings in order to occupy the territory over the years? Lin Sun's words were like unveiling the shameful cloth of the four emperors, which made their faces more and more cold and ugly. Do it, Xie Shangshu roared. The other three emperors attacked from different directions with Xie Shangshu almost at the first time, trying to suppress and restrain Lin Sun. Boom! The sky was chaotic, and the sun and moon hung upside down. How could a great emperor's aura be ordinary? Xie Shangshu and the other three emperors intended to show the power of the emperor realm in front of the world. So when they attacked, they were ready to capture the enemy with one blow. The light of Tao roared, and the divine light was like a tide, as if to collapse the sky. The horrible scene made all living beings in the Forbidden City fall into great fear. It was like the end of the world. At this time, Lin Sun looked as indifferent as before. He stretched his body casually and suddenly released a horrible pressure like a furnace to suppress the world. In the blink of an eye, the various powers of the Emperor's Daos that were attacking him were instantly suppressed, unable to move, and emitted intense waves that sounded like wails. Xie Shangshu and the others narrowed their eyes, and their expressions changed. One strike is enough to kill all of you. With a cold and indifferent voice, Lin Sun used his fingers as a sword and chopped down in the void. Boom! A strand of brilliant sword qi surged into appearance. It was gorgeous and blazing, and it displayed all sorts of variations. The sword qi formed the grand scene of the world circulating and all things changing. It was as if a world of swords was being displayed to the extreme. One sword to birth 10,000 laws. One sword to destroy 10,000 Daos. This was the life and death sword. Kill. Go all out. Xie Shangshu and the others sensed that something was wrong. They roared and resisted with all their might. However, no matter how he struggled, his cultivation was suppressed by the bright world of sword energy. In the blink of an eye, four old fellows who just stepped foot into the Emperor realm were drowned by the vast torrent of sword qi, and they were crushed into pieces. At this moment, countless people lost their wits. Even Ahu and the old toad were amazed, and their hearts were in turmoil. For Emperor realms were killed in the blink of an eye. The impact of that scene was too strong. Impossible. Our Supreme Elder will never be defeated. In the field, a group of descendants of the Heavenly Sword sect shouted hysterically, unable to accept such a heavy blow. Not only the Heavenly Sword sect. In the crowd watching from afar, the descendants from various orthodoxies in the ancient Desolation realm felt as if they'd been hit in the head by a stick and they were about to collapse. Even when hundreds of quasi-emperors died before, they had never experienced such a feeling of despair. It was like a towering mountain had collapsed in their hearts, because those who died now were emperor realms. 50 years after the revival of spiritual qi, only 4 emperor realms had emerged. Even if they returned to the ancient desolation realm, emperor realms were still the supreme existence. But now, Lin Sun killed 4 emperor realms with one strike. Who could believe it? And who could accept it? Under the sky, seeing that the divine souls of Xie Shangshu and others were about to be destroyed, Lin Sun stretched out his hand and grabbed the 4 emperor realms' primordial spirits. He imprisoned them in the palm of his hand, as if he was imprisoning 4 ants. The most incredible thing was that in such a great battle, not a trace of the destructive aura leaked out. It was all suppressed by Lin Sun's absolute power and then disappeared silently. In other words, no creatures were affected in this battle. Otherwise, the power that spread out alone could destroy half of the Forbidden City. At this moment, the experts of the orthodoxies in the ancient desolation realm felt a chill from head to toe, as if a basin of cold water had been poured over their heads. Countless people were dumbfounded, and their minds went blank. From the beginning to the end, Lin Sun killed hundreds of quasi-emperors with a snap of his fingers, and then killed 4 emperor realms with one strike of his sword. The primordial spirits that survived were also imprisoned by Lin Sun. These scenes were simply like a legend, and they revealed inconceivable shock. Until a long while, the silent atmosphere was suddenly overturned by the monstrous sound waves. Countless practitioners in a mortal world screamed wildly and danced with excitement. My God, Peak Master Lin really won. It's incredible. Even the Emperor realms are as vulnerable as grass in his hands. From now on, what qualifications does the orthodoxy of the ancient desolation realm have to be superior? What confidence does he have to look down on us like before? Many elders were trembling with tears of excitement. Some people looked up to the sky and laughed, venting their inner emotions wantonly. In the past years, the people in the mortal world were at the bottom, looked down upon, and controlled by the orthodoxy of the ancient desolation realm. They had been suppressing their anger for a long time. All of this was completely vented at this moment. Child is unparalleled in the world, and his crown covers the entire capital. The legend of Peak Master Lin has never faded. The whole Forbidden City turned into a boiling ocean, and countless people were ecstatic. The aloof woman who came with Wei Yunzhong seemed to have lost her soul at this moment and couldn't say a word. At the thought of how she had disdained Lin Sun before, she felt that she had survived a disaster. If Lin Sun had punished her at that time, would she still be standing here alive? Even Wei Yunzhong's inner pride and conceit had collapsed. With bitterness in his mouth, he suddenly felt that he was like a clown jumping up and down when he first saw Lin Sun. Killing the emperor like killing a chicken. Killing the emperor like killing a chicken. Shi Yu's eyes drifted. He completely believed what Old Toad and Alu had said. However, he couldn't imagine what Lin Sun had experienced in these years that he could have such a terrifying attainment in the Great Tao. Uncle, did you win? Shi Linlang opened her big watery eyes and asked curiously. She was worried that she would suffer a shock. She fell into a deep sleep and didn't wake up until now. Yes, yes. Shi Yu nodded fiercely. Ahu! Old Toad and Alu looked at each other and couldn't help laughing. In the sky, Lin Sun collected the primordial spirits of the 4 emperors and said, Ahu, take them back first. I'll be back soon after I destroy those forces in the ancient desolation realm. His voice was still drifting. Lin Sun's figure had turned into a flowing light, piercing through the sky. Everyone was dumbfounded. At this time, the orthodoxies of the ancient desolation realm distributed in the Forbidden City had fallen into chaos. Hundreds of quasi-emperors had fallen, and 4 emperors were in trouble. All of this had turned their initial shock and anger into fear at this moment. Of course, there were great figures residing within their respective powers, but even more formidable figures had headed to the various folded secret realms and abodes of cultivation to search for their fortune in the Tao, and some had even left for many years and hadn't returned until now. For the people in the mortal world, although the power of the orthodoxies in the ancient desolation realm was still enough for them to look up to, but for Lin Sun, it was not enough at all. Moreover, in order to prevent the orthodoxies in the ancient desolation realm from evacuating, Lin Sun released the 5 Tao forms as soon as he took action. Amethyst Mountain, the place where the Black Demon Dog clan was entrenched. Let's go! That little bastard, surnamed Lin, is now in the Emperor realm. His strength is extremely terrifying. Amethyst Mountain was in chaos. Many big shots of the Black Demon Dog clan were panicking and gathering their clansmen to escape. Suddenly, an indifferent voice sounded. You still want to leave now? It's too late. Along with the voice, Lin Sun's figure appeared out of thin air. His right hand pinched the air and a palm print directly toward Amethyst Mountain. Oh no! The experts of the Black Demon Dog clan all turned pale and fled crazily, but it was already too late. Boom! Lin Sun's palm print covered the sky and the sun, wrapped in billions of rays of light, causing the world to lose its color and enveloped the entire Amethyst Mountain. Before the mighty fist force arrived, many Black Sea Dog clan experts had already been crushed into a mist of blood by the might of the fist force. And when the palm print fell, boom! The entire vast Violet Mountain was drowned by the dazzling and boundless light of the Tao. The energy of the formation that enveloped it was simply like paper, and it vanished without a trace in the blink of an eye. The experts of the Black Sea Tengu clan that were scattered all over the mountain were blasted to death by this palm. When Lin Sun withdrew his right hand, the Amethyst Mountain, which was tens of thousands of meters high, seemed to be erased from the ground, and on the ground there was an unfathomable huge palm print, which was shocking to see. God, it's terrible. Some cultivators nearby were alarmed, and when they saw this scene, they all gasped and were stunned. Lin Sun's figure flashed, and without stopping, he went straight to the next force of the ancient desolation. And at the same time, Lin Sun's 5 doppelgangers also appeared in Xuandu, Taoism sect, Beast Spiritual Mountain, Holy Land of Spiritual Treasure, and Heavenly Sword sect. 30 seconds later, Mount Pine, where Xuandu Taoism sect was located, and Gale Mountain, where Beast Spiritual Mountain was located, were all trampled, and the experts who occupied them all dissipated with the destruction of the mountain. 50 seconds later, the number of orthodoxies in the ancient desolation realm that Lin Sun had eradicated had reached an astonishing 9, and this kind of killing was still going on. P.S. Happy Little Year, please remember the original domain name of this book. Library of Literature. Chapter 2460. With the recovery of spiritual chi, the world changed dramatically. The Forbidden City was comparable to a small world. Even if a strong man of the Quasi-Emperor realm moved across the void, it would take him several hours to cross the whole Forbidden City. But with Lin Sun's expedition, he destroyed 9 orthodoxies of the ancient desolation domain in just a short time. First, his speed was extremely fast. Second, his original body and the 5 Taoist bodies went to different targets. Thirdly, his combat strength was too terrifying, and annihilating the territory of a Tao sect only took a few seconds for him to do so. Overlooking the whole Forbidden City from the sky, the annihilation of one sect after another was like a dazzling and resplendent flame that illuminated the 9 heavens, and it was an extremely beautiful scene. But for the people in the Forbidden City, what was happening meant that the dominant orthodoxies of the ancient desolation domain were falling, withered, and destroyed one after another. Because Lin Sun's pace of attack was too fast, when the news came out, it was far behind his speed of killing. The Black Demon Dog clan was destroyed. The Xuandu Taoism sect was destroyed. The Beast Spiritual Mountain was destroyed. News like this swept through the world like a torrential storm, causing the people of the world to feel a sense of chaos. Their heads buzzed in disbelief. How could this be? It's too fast. Are those orthodoxies of the ancient desolation domain useless? No, but under the killing of peak leader Lin, they are useless. Strong. Too strong. Countless trembling uproars sounded, and all of this continued to play out as time passed. Today, the Forbidden City was destined to usher in a great reshuffle. Shenxiu Mountain, the place where the Holy Land of Spirit Treasure was located. This was originally the place where the imperial palace was located. With the dramatic change of the world and the recovery of spiritual chi, a mountain rose from the ground. It was steaming with purple air all year round and flowing with auspicious clouds. Its appearance was far beyond the ordinary blessed land. Now, it was known as the first blessed land in the Forbidden City. In the past, in order to compete for Shinshio Mountain, the orthodoxies of the ancient Desolation domain even launched a year-long bloody conflict, which was finally won by the Holy Land of Spirit Treasure. Whoosh! High in the sky, Lin Sun appeared out of thin air and looked down. His huge spiritual awareness immediately covered the whole Shinshio Mountain. But to Lin Sun's surprise, the whole Shinshio Mountain was empty and there was no one else. Lin Sun floated down and walked on Shinshio Mountain, looking around. This place was extraordinary. The air was suffused with dense, chaotic spiritual energy, and the rocks, grass, and trees flickered with the glow of divinity. The mountain was in chaos, and scattered items could be seen everywhere. The experts of the numinous treasure Holy Land must have left in a hurry when they were retreating. Lin Sun came to the top of the mountain, where there were many palaces, Taoist rites, herb gardens, alchemy rooms, and other buildings. But it was also empty. Not a single one. Did they all escape? Lin Sun frowned. Even if he had escaped, he would have left behind some traces. However, he had not found any valuable clues along the way. Inadvertently, Lin Sun glimpsed a pond. The pond was only about 10 feet wide, and the water was clear and transparent. There was only a single green lotus that swayed gently in the wind. Lin Sun's eyes were full of surprise. He stepped forward and looked carefully. This lotus seemed ordinary, but it was obviously different from those seen in the secular world. Its plump, jade green, and perfectly round leaves were branded with strands of natural Grand Tao markings. There were 9 leaves in total, and each leaf had a different pattern of Tao. When Lin Sun deduced the patterns of these 9 leaves one by one in his mind, an amazing scene appeared. These patterns actually outlined the shape of a door. There were leaves, but no flowers. This secret door of Tao patterns might be the hidden flower of this lotus. Lin Sun even speculated that this lotus in the pond was very likely to be a portal to a folded world or a secret place. And those descendants of the numinous treasure Holy Land probably didn't escape at all, but hid in the world in this green lotus. Lin Sun's black eyes surged, and he suddenly waved his sleeve. Boom! Tao marking talisman diagrams that covered the sky condensed together and moved horizontally and vertically in space. In the end, they transformed into a restriction formation that concealed the pond and the lotus within it. Then Lin Sun turned around and left. It was obviously not appropriate to explore an unknown place at this time. It was not too late to take action after getting specific information. Only half a quarter of an hour. All the forces of the ancient Desolation territory distributed in the Forbidden City were wiped out. And half a quarter of an hour ago, Lin Sun just killed hundreds of quasi-emperors and 4 old monsters who had stepped into the Emperor realm. When everyone found out about the final piece of news, all of them were dumbstruck on the spot, and it was like they'd heard an impossible miracle. Wiped out all of them. How long has it been? Countless people were in a trance, so shocked that their minds went blank and their skin was covered with goosebumps. The merit of this battle is enough to be remembered for all eternity. Even if the world is full of ups and downs, it will be remembered by future generations. Some figures of the older generation were even excited to the point of crying out loudly, and they danced with joy and were wild with joy. For the local cultivators in the Forbidden City, the orthodoxies of the ancient Desolation realm were like mountains pressing on their heads. Over the years, they had been pressed to the point that their spines were bent, their heads hung low, and they were almost breathless and hopeless. But today, with Lin Sun's conquest, he swept away all the orthodoxies of the ancient Desolation territory with his own strength, which was equivalent to completely overthrowing the mountains pressing on their heads. Who wouldn't be excited? Who wouldn't be ecstatic? Previously, I was feeling hopeless for peak leader Lin. I thought that his challenge was like an ant trying to shake a tree, and that he had overestimated his own capabilities. But now, I can only feel anxious. I'm ashamed. There were also many practitioners who felt ashamed. Lin Sun had disappeared for many years. Many people thought that he had missed the golden age of the revival of spiritual qi and couldn't wrestle with the forces of the ancient desolation territory. But today, Lin Sun proved to the world that he could dominate the capital when he was young, and he could do the same now. The sea was changing, and the world was full of ups and downs. Only the true heroes could show their unparalleled style. Hey, it's not too late to realize it now. Sensing the uproar and seething atmosphere in the city, and seeing the martial cultivators shouting and yelling with no regard for their manners, you could not help but feel excited. Old Toad, Alu, and Ahu couldn't help laughing, and their eyes were shining with pride. Father, are they cheering for Uncle? Lin Lang blinked her beautiful big eyes and asked curiously. Yes. Yu nodded fiercely, with a smile on his face and a sigh of emotion. At this moment, countless practitioners were celebrating in the Forbidden City. The sound of discussion and uproar resounded through the world like a boiling torrent. Lin Sun, Lin Sun, Lin Sun. This name was discussed by countless people, like a legend of the present age. In today's Forbidden City, the unparalleled legend shone on the world and was unparalleled. Have you ever heard of the Song of the Heavenly Sun? Some elders were emotional as they reminisced. The young peak leader was in his prime and unparalleled in talent. Lu Qingyin, the first art practitioner in the world, wrote a song of the heavenly sun for him, which caused a sensation in the world for a while. Now that I think about it, those scenes are still vivid in my mind. Those young people couldn't help being curious and asked one after another. As a result, on that day, the Song of the Heavenly Sun became popular again. It was sung in every street and every area. Now, we shouldn't call him Peak Leader Lin anymore. Today, he can kill a quasi-emperor as easily as tearing a painting and destroy an Emperor Realm expert as easily as taking something out of his pocket. We should change our honorific. Someone deliberated. As soon as this suggestion came out, it immediately ignited the enthusiasm in people's hearts, and they all offered suggestions. How about Battle Emperor Lin? Or Emperor Lin? All kinds of suggestions sounded one after another, but they were quickly rejected. Then, a senior figure spoke up. Peak Leader Lin rose to prominence in the mortal world. Now he has returned, sweeping across the ancient wilderness and suppressing the great emperor. He is like a king traveling to pacify the universe. He has mastered the power of the Great Way and is acting on behalf of God. Saving me is equivalent to saving me from the abyss of suffering. So he should be called Emperor. As soon as this remark came out, countless people applauded and nodded. Therefore, the title of Emperor Lin also spread in the shortest time, and soon spread out of the Forbidden City to the entire Xiao Empire, or the entire Myriad Dao realm. And at this time, on Xinxiu Mountain, Lin Sun had already returned with Ahu, Old Toad, Yu, Green Deer School, commune of spiritual tattooists, Golden Hall, and other practitioners. From today on, this Xinxiu Mountain will be renamed as Heart Cleansing. I have decided to establish a Taoist orthodoxy here and build a foundation for all ages. I don't seek to dominate the world, but I just hope that when I encounter a great disaster in the future, everyone related to me will not suffer undeserved disasters. On the top of the mountain, Lin Sun gathered everyone and said in a deep voice. As soon as this remark came out, everyone couldn't help getting excited. They all knew that Lin Sun's move was not for himself, but for all of them present. However, the establishment of a Taoist orthodoxy is a big deal. For this matter, we should work together to make suggestions and preparations. Lin Sun said, after I rescue the Lin family, I will immediately start to establish a Taoist orthodoxy. As he said, it was easy to establish a Taoist orthodoxy. With his current strength, he could support the power of a Taoist orthodoxy alone. But it was extremely difficult to establish an everlasting Taoist orthodoxy. Over the years, Lin Sun had traveled on the ancient road of the starry sky and seen countless ancient orthodoxies. Only he knew that even powerful sects like the Hidden Land Realm and the Divine Sunshine Ancient Sect would be destroyed once they encountered an enemy like Lin Sun. In particular, the purpose of Lin Sun establishing a Taoist orthodoxy was to provide a shelter for his relatives and friends who were related to him after he left. Therefore, this matter must be well planned. On this day, Lin Sun killed 4 emperors, killed more than 100 quasi-emperors, and wiped out all the forces in the ancient Desolation Realm, which caused a sensation in the Forbidden City. The world competed to sing the Song of the Chosen One, and everyone called him Emperor Lin. On this day, Shinshio Mountain was renamed as Heart Cleansing Mountain. Emperor Lin and his party lived on it and planned to establish a Taoist orthodoxy. The news spread and attracted the attention of the world. This day was recorded in the history of the Myriad Tao realm as the return of the emperor. P.S. The second is a little later. Library of Literature. Chapter 2461. Heart Cleansing Peak. Lin Sun sat cross-legged and calmed down. He was searching the memories of Mingya, Xie Shangxiu, Xiu Yunzi, and Yu Shao one by one. After a long time, Lin Sun opened his eyes. In Mingya's memory, at the beginning of the recovery of spiritual qi, a pond and a green lotus emerged in the imperial palace, which was now Shinshio Mountain. And there was a folded secret realm in this green lotus. When the orthodoxies of the ancient Desolation territory came, the members of the imperial family had already disappeared. Lin family of Heart Cleansing Peak had also disappeared at the same time, until Lingbao Holy Land occupied this place called Shinshio Mountain. Mingya and other senior officials of Lingbao Holy Land were suspicious. It was very likely that the missing members of the imperial family and Lin family of Heart Cleansing Peak had entered the folded secret realm in the Green Lotus Pond in advance. In the past decades, Mingya led a group of strong practitioners of Lingbao Holy Land to explore this world called Green Lotus Secret Realm more than once. According to Mingya's memory, this Green Lotus Secret Realm was extremely mysterious and vast. It was like a huge beehive with dense channels like holes. Entering different holes would lead to different small worlds. It gave off the feeling that the Green Lotus Secret Realm was a huge world nest that was dotted with different small secret realms. After years of exploration, the places explored by Mingya and other strong practitioners of Lingbao Holy Land were less than 1/10 of the Green Lotus Secret Realm. In these years of exploration, Mingya did not find the members of the Imperial family and Lin family of Heart Cleansing Peak. But according to their inference, the Imperial family and Lin family of Heart Cleansing Peak were probably hiding in a secret realm, but they had not been found for the time being. This news refreshed Lin Sun's spirit. He had no clue about the disappearance of Lin family before, but now at least he had found a clear clue to explore. At the same time, after exploring the memory of Xie Shangxiu, Xiu Yunzi, and Yu Shao, Lin Sun also got more clues about folded space and blessed land. The Forbidden City was regarded as the holy land of all Tao. The reason was that the folded space and blessed land emerged in the Forbidden City, which was far more than that in other places of Xiao Empire. These folded spaces usually appeared in paradises like the godly Grace Mountain and the vast Purple Mountain. For example, the Green Lotus Arcane Realm appeared in a pond on the Shinshio Mountain. The reason why Mingya, Xie Shangxiu, and the other martial emperors were able to achieve the martial emperor realm in such a short period of time was because they had obtained different opportunities of the Great Tao while exploring the folded spaces. For example, when Mingya was exploring the Green Lotus Secret Realm, he coincidentally entered a divine mountain formed from the laws of the Great Tao. He found a mysterious origin of Tao fruit within it, and after refining it, he stepped into the Emperor realm in one go. For example, Xie Shangxiu had found a river formed from the quintessence of the Grand Tao. It was vast and continuous like a dragon, and after Xie Shangxiu refined the river, he'd finally realized his dream of becoming an emperor. It was the same for Xiu Yunzi and Yu Yang. According to the memory of the 4 emperors, Lin Sun came to a conclusion. If the mortal world was the core of the origin of all Tao, then the Forbidden City was the core of the core. The source of the spiritual energy revival was located in the different folded spaces in the Forbidden City. On the contrary, the power released by the spiritual energy revival spread to the whole mortal world through different folded spaces in the world, thus affecting the amazing changes of the whole world, and so on. The closer one was to the source of the spiritual energy revival, the greater the chance of getting the Tao fate. It was the same for Mingya and the other three emperors. Understanding this, Lin Sun couldn't help but think. Everyone knew that the spiritual energy revival in the mortal world ushered in an unprecedented prosperity, but not many people in the world knew where the source of the spiritual energy revival was. If they could find this source, it was not only because they had found the source of the spiritual energy revival in the mortal world. Perhaps they could gain insight into the essence and mystery of the origin of all Tao. What surprised Lin Sun most was, in the memory of the four emperors, they all had a similar experience. That was when exploring the folded spaces, they had sensed some extremely dangerous breaths. Because of this, when exploring some secret realms, they all subconsciously avoided the areas where the dangerous breaths were distributed. According to their speculation, it was very likely that there were unknown, horrible creatures in the core area of the origin of all Tao. Unfortunately, after searching through Mingya's and the others' memories, Lin couldn't find any clues related to these terrifying creatures. Obviously, it didn't dare to explore and get close to the spiritual energy revival at all, so they could only make inferences. Ahu, Old Toad. Before long, Lin Sun found Ahu and others and told them his speculation. I intend to take you to explore the Green Lotus secret realm. Maybe I can find you a chance to break through the Emperor realm. Hearing this, Ahu and others were all excited. Whether it was Ahu, Old Toad, Alu, Silver, Tion, or the Big Black Bird, they had been stuck in the third level of the Quasi-Emperor realm for many years. For them, it really only needed an opportunity to become an emperor. But such an opportunity was too difficult to find. Sometimes they couldn't get what they wanted even after searching for thousands of years. Since they had such an opportunity, they naturally wouldn't miss it. Then Heart-Cleansing Peak. Ahu was a little worried. If they entered the Green Lotus secret realm together and no one was in charge of Heart-Cleansing Peak, it would cause a lot of trouble. Lin Sun smiled and said, "Don't worry about it. It's enough to deal with any enemy if I leave my doppelganger here." After a pause, his black eyes were deep, and he said, "What's more, although the Forbidden City has just experienced a great chaos, and it seems that the orthodoxies in the ancient Desolation Domain have been eradicated, as time goes by, the sect behind them will inevitably send more forces from the ancient Desolation Domain to this world. But with my doppelganger here, there's no need to worry too much." Hearing this, everyone nodded and felt relieved. The forces that were destroyed by Lin Sun before were only part of the orthodoxies in the ancient Desolation Domain. Their sects were still in the ancient Desolation Domain. This meant that there would definitely be more and more orthodoxies in the ancient Desolation Domain coming to this world in the future. But as long as Lin Sun's doppelganger was in charge, there would not be too much danger. There was no time to lose. On the same day, Lin Sun took action with Ahu and the others, while his 5 doppelgangers stayed on Heart-Cleansing Peak. The Forbidden City was still boiling and turbulent. The orthodoxies of the ancient Desolation Domain were wiped out. For all the practitioners in the city, it was like changing the world. And the news had spread to the outside world at an amazing speed. It would not be long before the whole world would be shocked by this earth-shaking battle. Little 5, you come here to guard this place. Don't let anyone approach here before I come back. Also, no matter who comes out of the Green Lotus secret realm, you must catch him first. In front of the pond, Lin Sun warned. Near the pond, Lin Sun had already set up a forbidden formation. With the formation spirit Little 5, it was enough to deal with all kinds of situations. Don't worry, big brother. Little 5 nodded confidently. Buzz, as Lin Sun waved his sleeve, mysterious patterns emerged on the jade-like round lotus leaves, outlining a mysterious portal in the void. Lin Sun had already put Ah Hu and the others into the Tower of Endless. Seeing this, he walked in without hesitation. When his figure disappeared in the portal also turned into a pattern and returned to the lotus leaves. Green Lotus secret realm on the top of a lonely mountain with a height of tens of thousands of meters. Buzz, with a strange wave, a virtual portal emerged on the top of the mountain, and Lin Sun's figure came out of it. At the top of the mountain, there was also a pond and a green lotus. According to the memory of Mingya, this was the exit to return to the outside world. Lin Sun looked up and saw that above the sky, auspicious clouds were curling, rays of light were shining, and the turbulent chaotic chi was rolling and steaming. In just a moment, Lin Sun felt that his suppressed realm was showing signs of loosening. It seems that this secret realm can accommodate more powerful forces because it is closer to the core of the origin of myriad Tao. If so, does it mean that when my suppressed cultivation recovers little by little, it means that I am closer to the core of the origin of myriad Tao? Lin Sun thought. Not long after, his figure flashed, and he left the mountain peak, flying toward the east at high speed. After getting the memory of Mingya, Lin Sun also knew some areas in this green lotus secret realm like the palm of his hand. At once, he judged that the beehive-like hole was located at a place 30,000 miles away from the exit. Whoosh! While flying, Lin Sun spread his spiritual awareness and soon found that there were many residual breaths in the void leading to the east. It seems that the successor of the Holy Land of Spirit Treasure who disappeared should have hidden in this green lotus secret realm. Lin Sun's dark eyes were deep, and he made an inference. A quarter of an hour later, suddenly, a dull sound of the great way resounded between heaven and earth. Lin Sun looked up and saw that in the far distance, the chaotic airflow was like a storm, slowly flowing and rolling between heaven and earth, forming a huge vortex that covered the sky and the sun, completely covering the world. If one looked carefully, one would see dazzling specks of light flickering within the chaotic vortex, flickering like stars. In Lin Sun's eyes, the chaotic vortex was like a huge beehive, and those light spots were the holes and tunnels leading to different secret realms. Whoosh! Lin Sun's figure flashed and approached it. He couldn't help but feel shocked. This chaotic vortex was so huge that it covered the sky and the earth, releasing obscure and mysterious fluctuations of the Great Way. In front of it, people were like a drop in the ocean. Chapter 2462. Between heaven and earth, the whirlpool of chaos rotated slowly, distorting and collapsing the nearby void. In the whirlpool, there were hundreds of densely packed holes. Lin Sun stood in front of it and looked carefully. The traces left by the descendants of the Holy Land of Spiritual Treasure disappeared after they arrived here. But when he looked carefully, he found that there was some lingering aura near one of the holes. This was the trace left by the power of cultivation when flying against the whirlpool of chaos. It seems that I have entered this secret realm. As Lin Sun pondered, he recalled the information he had obtained from Mingya's soul. Over the years, Mingya had explored many secret realms in the holes. Lin Sun used this information to verify it. Those holes that had been explored were now of no value. There were also some holes marked by Mingya as extremely dangerous, which meant that although Mingya entered them, he left immediately without exploring them. To Lin Sun's surprise, the holes that the descendants of the Holy Land of Spiritual Treasure entered were marked as extremely dangerous. After thinking for a while, Lin Sun understood. These strong practitioners of the Holy Land of Spiritual Treasure had probably guessed that Lin Sun would definitely chase after them, so they resolutely chose an extremely dangerous place to survive. Whoosh! Lin Sun's figure flashed and rushed into this whole tunnel. For Mingya, the extremely dangerous place was very likely to hide unknown, horrible creatures. Lin Sun also wanted to see it. After a series of twists and turns, the void changed. Lin Sun appeared in a misty and hazy secret realm. The mountains and rivers here were picturesque, vast, and magnificent. The mellow power of the Great Way turned into wisps of misty rain, which made people feel relaxed and happy when they breathed. Good place. Lin Sun's black eyes brightened slightly. At the first moment, his suppressed cultivation was greatly loosened and restored to the second level of the Emperor realm. Obviously, this secret realm should be extremely close to the core of the origin of all Tao. Moreover, as Lin Sun sensed with his divine sense, he also found that in terms of the richness of spiritual qi, this world could be regarded as a first-class blessed place on the starry sky ancient path. While thinking, Lin Sun walked forward in the void. The misty rain was drifting, and the mountains and rivers were hazy. Soon, Lin Sun captured the aura left by the descendants of the Holy Land of spiritual treasures again. Following the trail of these auras, a quarter of an hour later, a rolling blood-red mountain appeared in Lin Sun's sight. From a distance, it looked like an ancient blood dragon coiling on the earth. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes slightly. He sensed that almost half of the energy of the great Tao that permeated this secret realm had been plundered by the blood-red mountain range. This kind of plunder was silent. If not for his incredible cultivation, it would have been very difficult for him to detect it. Back then, Mingya sensed the extremely dangerous aura here, which was why he left without hesitation. If that's the case, then if there's really a terrifying being hidden in this secret realm, it's probably in this bloody mountain range. While thinking, Lin Sun approached with light steps. In just a moment, Lin Sun's spiritual awareness locked on the position of a valley. In the valley, the grass, trees, and rocks were as red as blood, which was strange and frightening. On the ground, there were some fragments of magic treasures. In the air, there was a trace of blood. Lin Sun floated down and sensed for a moment. He couldn't help but have a strange look in his eyes. Through observation, he had expected that those descendants of the Holy Land of spiritual treasure were killed silently after escaping to this valley, and even the flesh and blood of their corpses were devoured. If he had arrived a step later, the traces left behind in the valley would have quickly disappeared. There are no traces of fighting at the scene, which proves that those strong practitioners of the Holy Land of spiritual treasure had no power to resist at all and were wiped out. And to be able to do this, Lin Sun was thinking with his hands behind his back. Silently, the wisps of misty rain permeating between heaven and earth suddenly appeared a touch of blood. When they approached Lin Sun, the wisps of misty rain turned into ferocious demon-like heads and bit down. This sudden change was so unexpected that no one could guard against it. But halfway through, these bloody demon heads collapsed and annihilated one after another, as if they were crushed by an invisible abyss. Lin Sun stood still without raising his eyelids. Only his feet suddenly exerted force. Boom! The ground shattered and caved in, forming a huge blood-colored ravine. Countless bloody demon-like figures whizzed out, moving as fast as lightning. Their aura was also terrifying and violent. Each aura was not weaker than a quasi-emperor, and some of the stronger ones even had the power of the third level of quasi-emperor. In an instant, it was so powerful that it covered the sky and the sun. Lin Sun was not in a hurry. He stretched out his right arm, and a big abyss steamed out of his palm. Boom! The bloody demons all over the sky were suddenly swept away by a hurricane. Their bodies exploded and were continuously swallowed up by Lin Sun's palm power. After a moment, in Lin Sun's palm, there was only a crystal red bead. The bead was the size of a thumb, crystal clear, and there were wisps of thunder and lightning surging inside. Lin Sun looked at it for a moment, and his eyes lit up. This bead was condensed from the origin of the Great Way of red fire and the Great Way of thunder. The aura of the two great ways showed a kind of primitive and authentic characteristics, just like the origin of the Great Way of fire and the Great Way of thunder. This lower world is known as the core of the origin of all Tao. It seems that the rumor is true. Lin Sun turned his hand and put away the bead. The Great Way was invisible, reflected in all the mountains and rivers, and everything. Cultivators observed the world, mountains and rivers, and understood the mystery of the Great Way. so as to realize their own transformation. But the origin of the Great Way and the mystery of the nature of the Great Way were difficult to understand, not to mention ordinary cultivators, even powerful existences like the Emperor realm. In the lower 5 realms, the most comprehended was Tao aura and Tao meaning. In the King realm, the comprehension was the law of the Great Way on the road to longevity. In the Saint realm, the comprehension was the law of the Divine Way. In the Quasi-Emperor, the comprehension was the incomplete law of the Emperor Way. Until the Emperor realm, the comprehension and control was nothing more than the law of the Emperor Way. But whether it was Tao aura, Tao meaning, the law of longevity, the law of the Divine Way, or the law of the Emperor Way, in fact, all these were kind of embodiment of the Great Way. It was just that the higher the cultivation, the deeper the comprehension of the Great Way, and the closer to the essence of the Great Way. Until the Emperor-Ancestor realm, they were regarded as the ancestor of a Tao, which was equivalent to controlling the complete origin and essence of the Great Way. Therefore, the Emperor-Ancestor realm was regarded as the supreme existence. This was also the reason why Lin Sun was surprised when he saw that this small bead was imprinted with the aura of the origin of the Great Way of fire and thunder. Unfortunately, the Great Way in this bead was, although the power was rare in the world, after all, it was only some wisps of aura, not complete. In the eyes of ordinary cultivators, it may be regarded as a priceless treasure, but for Lin Sun, it was not of much value. But this discovery made Lin Sun's heart move. The lower world was regarded as the core of the origin of the Great Way. Did this mean that if he could get close to the core, he could see the origin of the Great Way? If he could comprehend and control the essence and mystery of the origin of the Great Way, when he reached the Emperor-Ancestor realm, could he be called the ancestor of the Great Way? Immediately, Lin Sun shook his head. The Great Way in the world was vast and innumerable. The word Great Way was just a general term. Since ancient times, no one could be called the ancestor of the Great Way. And to reach this step on the road of Tao, even if there was hope, how difficult it was. While thinking, Lin Sun's pupils narrowed slightly. His figure flashed and appeared under the sky. At this time, the boundless blood-colored mountain range on the ground seemed to have awakened from its eternal slumber and suddenly began to shake violently. Immediately afterward, endless bloody light rose to the sky, constantly intertwined and squirmed, and gradually condensed into a bloody figure. With the appearance of this bloody figure, the world was turbulent, the clouds collapsed, and the terrifying and boundless power rumbled and spread, making him look like a supreme god. In Lin Sun's eyes, this figure was in an extremely strange state. Its appearance kept changing, from a gray-haired old man to a valiant young man to a charming and beautiful woman, and even transformed into all kinds of ferocious birds and mythical beasts. It was a kind of all living beings. And the breath of this figure was also extremely powerful, which seemed to have reached the limit that this world could bear. The second level of the Emperor realm. Was this a man or a ghost? Lin Sun's black eyes flashed, and he couldn't tell what kind of strange monster this was. Dying. The bloody figure opened his mouth like a thunderous drum, shaking the world. Boom! The world was chaotic, and a string of fire and thunder roared up, condensed into a big seal, and rushed towards Lin Sun. Its momentum was so strong that it seemed to destroy the world. Humph! Lin Sun snorted coldly and no longer hesitated. He flashed in the air and rushed forward. Boom! The seal, which could easily kill all the strong men under the Emperor realm, was crushed by his palm, and thousands of fiery red thunder and lightning splashed out. Go to hell! The blood-red figure let out another explosive shout when he saw Lin Sun charging over. Numerous flaming divine chains that were entwined with dazzling arcs of lightning flashed out and whistled out. Crack! Lin Sun pulled with his big hand, like tearing a canvas, and tore the dense chains of thunder and fire into powder. It was so powerful that it was a complete mess. Seeing that the situation was not good, the bloody figure seemed to dodge. Lin Sun sneered and had already stretched out his hand to grasp in the air. Boom! The bloody figure had no time to dodge. Its body was directly grasped. As Lin Sun exerted force in his palm, its body produced an earth-shaking explosion, and then it exploded inch by inch. Looking carefully, there was also a wisp of green smoke drifting out at the same time. Until the end, in Lin Sun's palm, there was only a fist-sized flaming thunder crystal, which contained a huge power of the Great Way, showing the characteristics of the Great Way of Fire and the Great Way of Thunder. Compared with the power of the Great Way in the crystal Lin Sun had just refined, it was thousands of times stronger. Chapter 2463. Not bad. I didn't expect to get such an opportunity in this exploration of the Green Lotus Secret Realm. Lin Sun's eyes lit up. The fist-sized thunder fire crystal contained the origin power of the Great Tao of Thunder and the Great Tao of Fire. Although it was also incomplete, it was obviously extraordinary. The mysteries imprinted in it were of great benefit to his comprehension of the Great Tao. It contains the origin power of the Great Tao. This thing can be called the Origin Tao Crystal. Lin Sun opened his mouth and swallowed the treasure into his body, nourishing it in his natal apotheosis realm. In this way, there was no need to comprehend it at all. As time passed, the mysteries of the Great Tao would be constantly refined. Lin Sun stood high in the sky and looked down. The vast, bloody mountain range was still there, but in Lin Sun's divine sense, he found that there were all kinds of corpses scattered in different areas of the mountain range. There were the remains of cultivators and the remains of monsters after countless years of erosion. These scattered bones had already decayed. Lin Sun was enlightened. The lower realm was part of the ancient wasteland, the core of the origin of the myriad Tao. The owners of these corpses had probably tried to explore the origin of the myriad Tao a long time ago, but unfortunately, they died here. Their remaining souls, wills, and blood. After countless years of changes, they merged into the origin power of the Great Tao here, turning into the bloody figure just now. That was the only explanation for the appearance of all living beings that the blood-red figure had just displayed. After a while, Lin Sun exclaimed softly. His figure flashed, and in the next moment, he appeared in the depths of the bloody mountain range. This was a huge rock at the foot of a mountain. Wisps of flame and thunder aura spread out from the surface of the rock. Lin Sun gently pressed his palm and fingers on the rock, calmly sensing it. In an instant, all kinds of mysterious mysteries of the Great Tao surged into his mind. These mysteries of the Great Tao were related to the Great Tao of Fire and the Great Tao of Thunder, and also showed a primitive essence. Could it be that the Origin Tao crystal here is related to this rock? Lin Sun's heart moved, and he suddenly exerted force with his palm and fingers. With his current strength, he could easily lift a divine mountain. But what was surprising was that this rock did not move at all. Lin Sun increasingly realized that this rock was not simple. But after experiencing all sorts of tests, he noticed that this rock was like the root of this world, and competing with it was like going against the entire world. In the end, Lin gave up. He sized up the surroundings. The spirit energy of heaven and earth here is dense, and it contains the origin energy of the Grand Tao. It's an extremely suitable place for cultivation. Old Toad, stay here and cultivate. It's enough for you to break through to the immortal Emperor realm. Lin Sun summoned Old Toad. What a good place. The old toad sized him up and its eyes brightened. Lin Sun smiled slightly. The spiritual qi in this secret realm was as turbulent as a tide, and this mysterious rock could help a cultivator enter the state of enlightenment at the first moment. With the old toad's foundation, it was the most suitable place to break through. Unfortunately, it was only suitable for one person to cultivate. If there was another person, the power of this secret realm would seem a little weak. When the great Emperor Tribulation comes, I'll protect you, Lin Sun said, and then turned to leave. 15 minutes later, the figure of Lin Sun reappeared in the giant, outside the chaotic vortex that was as big as a beehive. The successor of the numinous treasure sanctuary has met with trouble. Next, it's time to find the people of the Lin family. Lin Sun stared at the chaotic vortex and carefully sized up the dense holes in it. He first eliminated the holes that had been explored by Mingya. However, the number of remaining empty passageways was still shocking. It was impossible to explore all the secret realms behind these empty passageways in a short period of time. However, Lin Sun did not panic. After returning to the lower realm, he had completed the task of second senior brother Zhong Xiu and suppressed fourth senior brother Ling Xuanzi. The most urgent thing now was to find the people of the Lin family. Whoosh! Not long after, Lin Sun's figure flashed and entered a whole tunnel that was also marked as extremely dangerous by Mingya. Inside the tunnel, it was also a secret realm, but the scene was completely different. It was a world of ice and snow, and the cold wind was bone-chilling. The power of ice and snow was boundless and terrifying. When quasi-emperors entered, they would also feel the bone-chilling coldness, and their bodies would be frozen stiff. When Mingya came here, he only lasted less than a quarter of an hour before he had to withdraw. The ice and snow floating between heaven and earth were like piercing blades and sword chi, with the terrifying power to cut the soul and pierce the bone marrow. But all this did not have any effect on Lin Sun. Half an hour later, his figure appeared in front of a vast ice and snow lake. The lake was condensed with thick layers of ice and snow, but if one felt it carefully, one would find that this place was filled with surging pure spiritual chi of heaven and earth, as well as a primitive aura of the great Tao of water. After looking at it for a moment, Lin Sun stood in the air and punched. Boom! The ice lake that had been frozen for an unknown number of years had a huge hole forcibly opened up by the terrifying fist force. Around the hole, dense cracks spread out in all directions. In the blink of an eye, the ice on the surface of the entire ice lake burst into pieces, setting off monstrous waves. At the same time, an illusory blue figure burst out and pounced toward Lin Sun. Its speed and power were not inferior to the bloody figure that Lin Sun had seen before. But for Lin Sun, it was not enough. He did the same thing and suddenly grabbed the neck of the figure. The power of his palm and fingers was like a landslide and tsunami, crushing the blue figure inch by inch. In the end, there was another fist-sized origin Tao crystal in his palm. Sure enough, it seems that in every secret realm, after countless years of silence, similar creatures have condensed. As long as you kill them, you can get the origin Tao crystal. Lin Sun raised his hand and swallowed the treasure into his body. Then he took a step forward and rushed into the ice lake. At the bottom of the lake, a prominent ice and snow vein appeared, filled with wisps of the origin aura of the great Tao of water. This was almost the same as the strange rock scene in the Bloody Mountain before. It should be the root of this secret realm. Alu, you stay here and cultivate. Immediately, Lin Sun released Alu from the Tower of Eternity. After a brief explanation, Alu agreed happily. Lin Sun, on the other hand, left directly and appeared outside the beehive-like chaotic vortex again. Next, Lin Sun did not stop and chose another hole, tunnel, and flashed into it. This was a secret realm full of metal characteristics. The mountains, rocks, grass, and trees all exuded a biting cold aura of the great Tao of metal. Half an hour later, his figure returned, and there was an origin Tao crystal in his body that contained the essence and mystery of the great Tao of metal. Little Silver stayed in that secret realm to cultivate. In this way, Lin Sun went in and out of the holes of the chaotic vortex, constantly exploring. Every time he entered a secret realm, he could see the origin of one or two kinds of great Tao, kill a strange creature that had condensed in the silence of eternity, and seize an origin Tao crystal. Old Toad, Alu, Little Silver, Little Tian, Ahu, and others who came with Lin Sun were all arranged by Lin Sun to cultivate in different secret realms. In the process of exploration, Lin Sun did not encounter too many twists and turns and dangers, and seemed to be calm. Until a day later, the holes marked as extremely dangerous by Mingya had been completely explored by Lin Sun, and he had obtained a total of 39 origin Tao crystals. Each of them was branded with the most primitive essence of the great Tao, some of which were of the same attribute, and some of which were of different attributes. This kind of harvest was not small. At least with Lin Sun's current cultivation, it was impossible for him to refine all these origin Tao crystals in a short time. However, before Lin Sun became an emperor ancestor, these origin Tao crystals were of great benefit to his cultivation. Naturally, the more the better. The only thing that made Lin Sun frown was, in this day, he had explored nearly 40 secret realms, but he did not find any trace of the Lin family. It seems that I can only go to those secret realms that have not been explored by Mingya. Lin Sun thought that if he entered those unknown secret realms, Mingya's memory could no longer help him. This also meant that the following exploration was destined to be full of unknowns. It might be extremely dangerous, or there might be no danger at all. But no matter what, Lin Sun was bound to do it. After a day's time, Lin Sun restored his cultivation to the peak state, and then he started to move again. When he entered the first unknown secret realm that he had chosen, Lin Sun immediately noticed that this secret realm was completely different from what he had seen before. Because after arriving here, his suppressed cultivation was restored to the 3rd level of the Emperor realm at one stroke. Obviously, this secret realm was closer to the core of the origin of all Tao. Interesting. Does this mean that the origin Tao crystals accumulated here will also be very unusual? Lin Sun spread his divine sense, looking at the world while moving forward. With many explorations, he knew very well that there must be a core area in this secret realm, just like the root of the secret realm. As long as he found this place, he could get unexpected opportunities. 1 kind, 2 kinds, 3 kinds, 5 kinds. Along the way, Lin Sun was surprised to find that there were 5 kinds of origin auras of the great Tao in this secret realm. This was the first time that Lin Sun had encountered such a unique secret realm since his exploration. Until 10 minutes later, an unfathomable abyss appeared in the center of the earth with a range of 10,000 feet. In the depths of the abyss, black fog rolled, and occasionally light flashed like a comet. Lin Sun's figure stood in the void. As he continued to sense and look, his expression became serious little by little. Even a touch of solemnity quietly appeared between his eyebrows. Literature Museum. Chapter 2464. The abyss was deep, and the black fog was tumbling. Lin Sun calmed down and sensed that there was an extremely terrifying aura lurking in the depths of the abyss, which made him feel oppressed. Immediately, an indescribable joy surged in his heart. It seemed that he had finally met a worthy opponent. Boom! Lin Sun stretched out his hand and slapped down the abyss. Unparalleled Taoist light whistled down, smashing the rolling black fog and reaching the depths of the abyss. You're courting death. A cold roar sounded. A dazzling figure suddenly rushed out from the depths of the abyss, bathed in holy silver light. The peak of the 3rd level of the Emperor realm. Moreover, it was on the verge of breaking through to the 4th level. Lin Sun could see through at a glance. He couldn't help but suspect that if it weren't for the suppressive power of the secret realm, the silver figure would be even more powerful. Kill! While he was thinking, the silver figure had already rushed over, setting off a silver storm that shook the heaven and earth. Lin Sun didn't dodge, but rushed up to meet it. Boom! In a flash, the two had fought dozens of times. The sky was dark, the light of Taoist light splashed, and the torrent of destruction was everywhere. It was like 2 gods were fighting. This damn thing has mastered the supreme power of the Great Way, and has the complete fighting will. Lin Sun was surprised. When Lin Sun explored the secret realm before, almost all the horrible creatures he met were condensed in the original power of the Great Way by some strong men who had died for many years. They were not real living creatures, but the silver figure in front of him was obviously different. At the same time, the silver figure seemed to be surprised and shouted, "Who are you?" His figure flickered and turned into a slender silver streamer, avoiding Lin Sun. He looked at Lin Sun in surprise. "Who are you?" Lin Sun also stopped. Although he was surprised by the opponent's wisdom and willpower, Lin Sun was still confident that he could kill him in a moment. My name is Wan Kong. In the 3700th year of the Archean calendar, I secluded myself here to comprehend the origin of the Great Way. The silver figure said and showed his true appearance. It was a handsome young man with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes, but his eyes were full of vicissitudes of life. Someone from the primordial era? Lin Sun was stunned. Excuse me, you have been practicing in seclusion for countless years, but why is your cultivation still so weak? Weak? The handsome young man who called himself Emperor Myriad Sky was stunned. He found it funny. Friend, this is the core area of the Tao's origin, and the rules of this secret realm can only accommodate the cultivation of the third level of the Emperor realm. Otherwise, it would be easy for me to suppress you. At the end of his sentence, his voice was filled with disdain and confidence. If you were not suppressed, how high would your cultivation be? Lin Sun asked. All those years ago when I was in closed-door cultivation here, I was already at the 6th level of the Emperor realm, the lawless realm. After countless years of closed-door cultivation here, I've comprehended the supreme profundities of the Grand Tao, and it's sufficient for me to break through the threshold of the Emperor realm and ascend to the 9th level of the Emperor realm within a single day. Thousand Sky Emperor's eyes were clear. He was extremely conceited. However, Lin Sun smiled. So, you have been in seclusion here for so long, but you still haven't broken through the realm? Thousand Sky Emperor did not deny it, and said, If I break through the realm here, I will provoke the power of the order. Perhaps I can escape by luck, but I will lose the opportunity to continue comprehending the Grand Tao. The gains do not make up for the losses. Lin Sun could not help but be stunned. So you have not left this place for countless years. Thousand Sky Emperor shook his head. Only here can I feel the mystery of the Tao's origin. Without completely comprehending and controlling it, why would I leave? Cultivation addict. Lin Sun suddenly realized that this time, he meant an old guy who was obsessed with cultivation. He probably did not even know that the outside world had changed a long time ago. Friend, you have not told me your background, Thousand Sky Emperor said. Lin Daoyuan. People call me Emperor Daoyuan, Lin Sun said casually. Never heard of it. Thousand Sky Emperor shook his head. Lin Sun laughed. You have been hiding here for countless years, so naturally you have not heard of it. Let me ask you, do you know Taishian Sword Emperor? Originally, Lin Sun was just asking casually. Who would have thought that when he heard the words Taishian Sword Emperor, Thousand Sky Emperor's whole body trembled, and his eyes revealed a dazed look. Taishian, that is my martial uncle. You know him too? Lin Sun had a look of astonishment. Your martial uncle? Thousand Sky Emperor nodded. I will not go so far as to lie about this. Whoosh! Countless Taishian sword chi suddenly appeared around Lin Sun, densely packed, bright, and blazing. Taishian sword scripture. This is my martial uncle's Grand Tao inheritance. Thousand Sky Emperor was stunned. Are you my martial uncle's successor? You can say so. Lin Sun retracted the aura around him, and when he looked at Thousand Sky Emperor again, his eyes had already softened. Thousand Sky Emperor laughed and walked towards Lin Sun. Ha! Since that is the case, you and I are not strangers. We are even brothers of the same sect. Come, let us sit on the ground and talk. When he arrived in front of Lin Sun, he suddenly raised his hand and grabbed towards Lin Sun's neck. His speed was unbelievably fast, and the power of his palm was also terrifying. It was obvious that he had been accumulating power for a long time. As the saying went, when he did not move, it would be a fatal blow. The most horrifying thing was that he still maintained a warm and hearty smile on his face, but when he moved, it seemed so fierce and sudden. But his grab, which he was determined to win, missed. Thousand Sky Emperor's pupils shrank, and he wanted to dodge at the first moment, but a big hand had already grabbed his neck, and the power of the palm and fingers restrained his whole body. There are never so many coincidences in this world. Do you really think that I will believe your nonsense? Lin Sun's eyes were playful, and he held Thousand Sky Emperor in front of him like a little chick, looking him up and down. Thousand Sky Emperor's expression was uncertain, and after a while, he reluctantly said, "Fellow Taoist, what do you mean? I have never lied before." Bang! Lin Sun's palm and fingers exerted force, and Thousand Sky Emperor's body suddenly burst into pieces. In the rain of blood, there was only a spirit left, which was held in Lin Sun's palm. Looking closely, this spirit was actually a monkey with buck teeth and a sharp mouth. The spirit of the ghost realm monkey. No wonder it can see through the mysteries of people's hearts. Unfortunately, you are too impatient. If you wait a little longer, maybe I will really be fooled. Lin Sun said. The ghost realm monkey was an extremely rare spiritual creature. It could distinguish between yin and yang and see through people's hearts. It was born with a pair of ghost eyes. It was said that anyone who was stared at by the ghost realm monkey would be able to see through all the secrets in their hearts within a moment. It was extremely magical. Unfortunately, this trick was useless against Lin Sun. His Taoist heart was like the eternal sky, unshakable. How could it be seen through so easily? But even so, the spirit of the ghost realm monkey could weave a convincing reason with a few words, which was really not simple. The monkey hissed, "If we wait a little longer, there will be more flaws. With your cultivation and insight, you will definitely see through it at the first time. Instead of that, it is better to launch an attack now. Maybe there is a chance to reverse the situation." "You are right," Lin Sun nodded. "If my guess is right, over the years, you should have devoured the souls and memories of many strong people who died here, so that you can recognize Tai Xian Sword Emperor and Tai Xian Sword Scripture, right?" At this moment, the monkey was completely terrified. He lowered his head and said submissively, "Fellow Taoist, you are powerful and have a keen eye. I'm not as good as you. However, I see that your trip should be for the mystery of the origin of all Tao. If you don't kill me, I may be able to show you a clear way." "Oh," Lin Sun said with a smile, "if I want to know something, I can search your memories directly from your spirit. Why do I need your guidance?" Who would have thought that the monkey would throw caution to the wind and hissed, "Fellow Taoist, if you really do that, I promise that I will destroy my spirit as soon as you search my soul." Lin Sun frowned, thought for a moment, and said, "Fine, you can say it." The monkey seemed to be relieved and said calmly, "Fellow Taoist, you need to make a Taoist oath and promise to let me live after I tell you." Lin Sun immediately swore and promised. The monkey was still worried. He shook his head and said, "Fellow Taoist, don't blame me for worrying too much. For people in the Emperor realm, life and death are at their will. They are not afraid of the power of heaven, and it is impossible for them to be bound by oaths." After pausing for a moment, the monkey continued, "In order to preserve your life, I hope that you can bring me along with you. I'll be able to give you some pointers along the way. That way, you can verify whether my pointers are real or fake, and I'll be able to preserve my life temporarily." Lin Sun could not help but look at the monkey in surprise. After a while, he nodded and said, "Sure." He shackled the monkey's spirit and released his hand. He said, "Then tell me, where should I go if I want to search for the mystery of the origin of the myriad Taos?" Fellow Taoist should have already noticed that when you enter different worlds of origin, the power of order that suppresses your cultivation will be different. This means that the closer you are to the core of the origin of the myriad Taos, the weaker the power of order suppressing your cultivation will be until it disappears. The monkey's words made Lin Sun nod inwardly. It was also at this moment that Lin Sun found out that the secret realms of various sizes were called worlds of origin. However, it is impossible to reach the core of the myriad Taos origin by searching them one by one. The monkey continued. "It's because there are far too many worlds of origin. They are densely packed together, like stars adorning different places. The place you came from should be a mother nest of origins. However, even if you search through all the world in the mother nest of origins, you will only discover that there is not a single path that leads directly to the core of the myriad Taos origin." According to the monkey, the chaotic vortexes that Lin Sun had seen before and the holes within them were collectively known as the Mother Nest of Origins. Within the Mother Nest of Origins, there were countless worlds of origin. It was like a vast and complicated maze, and there was not a single path that led directly to the core of the myriad Daos origin. Chapter 2465. Lin Sun frowned when he heard this. He didn't urgently want to explore the core secrets of the origin of the myriad Daos, but he wanted to find the members of the Lin family. However, according to what the Ghost Domain Spirit Monkey said, there were actually countless secret realms within the origin Mother Nest. This meant that he could only rely on luck to find those Lin clansmen. No, Lin Sun suddenly said, "You've been hiding here for countless years. How do you know where the core of the origin of the myriad Daos is?" The monkey answered without hesitation, "Because I explored that place at the very beginning, but I encountered great danger and had no choice but to retreat. I even almost lost my life because of it. Although I survived in the end, only a strand of my spirit remained. Lead the way." Lin Sun didn't ask any more questions. The monkey agreed readily. The two of them left the origin world and returned to the origin hive. Fellow Taoist, I have to remind you that the closer you get to the core of the myriad Daos, the more dangerous it is. According to my knowledge, many terrifying existences came here to explore a long time ago. Some died, but there are also others like me who have always been hiding in the origin world near the origin of the myriad Daos. The monkey pointed at a tunnel in the origin hive and said, "There's a path in this origin world that leads to the secret realms in the depths." Lin Sun nodded and immediately took action. His figure flashed and flashed into the tunnel. Just like that, Lin Sun trudged through one origin world after another under the guidance of the ghost monkey. Along the way, he collected more and more origin crystals. Although the secrets of the origin of the great Daos contained in these treasures were more or less incomplete, they were accumulating in number. The ghost monkey, who called himself the Emperor of Emptiness, witnessed Lin Sun's terrifying combat strength along the way. Every time he entered a secret realm, no matter what kind of opponent he encountered, they were all easily killed by Lin Sun, causing him to feel a chill in his heart. Until a day later, when he entered another origin world, Lin Sun immediately noticed that his cultivation that had been suppressed all this time had instantly recovered to the peak of the 4th level of the Emperor realm. This made him realize that he should be getting closer and closer to the core of the myriad Daos. The path that the ghost monkey pointed to should be correct. Every origin world had an origin core. For example, the Scarlet Mountain he saw in the Thunder and Fire secret realm, the Ice Lake in the Ice secret realm, and the abyss he encountered when he captured the ghost monkey were the core of each secret realm. It was like the root of a big tree. Generally speaking, the dangers they encountered along the way were almost all near the origin of the Earth's core. The terrifying creatures that lurked there were mostly the same. However, from the origin world where Lin Sun was now, the strength of the opponents he met began to become stronger. Time passed day by day. Lin Sun and Monkey traveled through different worlds of origin. They would take a break from time to time, but most of the time, they were on their way. Along the way, the cultivation of the terrifying beings in the origin world gradually rose from 4th level Emperor to 5th, 6th, 7th level Emperor. Monkey seemed very nervous and kept giving Lin Sun pointers. But what shocked him was that even though Lin Sun was only at the 4th level of the Emperor realm, he seemed to be able to kill those 5th, 6th, and 7th level Emperor realm cultivators with ease. Until 10 days later, in a world that was as dark as an eternal night. Boom! Amidst the earth-shattering explosion, Lin Sun punched out and killed a terrifying being comparable to an 8th level Emperor realm cultivator. Light rained down and the world shook. Monkey, who was watching from afar, was completely dumbfounded. A 4th level Emperor realm cultivator killed an 8th level Emperor realm opponent across several levels. "I'm going to break through here, so I'll have to trouble you for a while." Lin Sun walked over with his dark eyes. His cultivation was like a cup filled with water that was about to overflow. He had reached the peak of the fourth-level Emperor realm and could no longer suppress it. Breakthrough. Monkey was stunned and reminded, it's extremely dangerous to break through here. It's very likely that you'll be devoured by the order of heaven and earth. It's fine. As Lin Sun spoke, he suppressed the monkey in the Tower of Endless without any explanation. Although the monkey had been by his side for 10 days, Lin Sun did not let down his guard. This monkey was the ghost monkey. It could read people's minds and was extremely cunning. Soon, Lin Sun abandoned all distracting thoughts and sat cross-legged in meditation. One day later, he opened his eyes and stood up, looking at the sky. Unknowingly, the surging tribulation clouds were like ink, and they covered the depths of the sky. The heavens and the earth were silent, and a terrifying heavenly might that oppressed one's heart suffused out along with it. Lin Sun put his hands behind his back and looked calm. This was the threshold to the fifth-level Emperor realm. As long as he broke through this tribulation, he could enter the secrety-reaching realm. Metaphysic, secrety-reaching, void-reaching. These were the realms from the fourth to the sixth-level Emperor realm. Among them, the void-reaching was also known as the lawless realm. Boom! After a while, the tribulation clouds rolled and a thunderous sound rang out. It was like a god beating a war drum, shaking the heavens and the earth. Then, a waterfall of dazzling, lightning Tao light rolled down from the ninth heaven. It's finally here. Lin Sun's expression was calm. His body was like a cauldron, and his momentum was like the abyss as he rose into the sky. Rumble. The tribulation began. The world of origin fell into unprecedented turbulence. Wind, thunder, lightning, and chaos. In midair, Lin Sun was like a god that bathed within the brilliant light of the Tao, and he possessed peerless divine might as he resisted the tribulation lightning that covered the sky and revealed boundlessly overbearing might. But this was not an emperor's tribulation in a general sense. It was a great tribulation for the supreme emperors, which made Lin Sun suffer a lot. Before long, his hair was disheveled and he was hurt. A quarter of an hour, half an hour, 3/4 of an hour. As time went by, the power of the thunder tribulation became more and more terrible, even abnormal. If it were an ordinary emperor, he would have been obliterated and died. But Lin Sun had been fighting for a full 30 minutes. In the end, his body was cracked and exploded, leaving only his will and dharma to fight. It was extremely dangerous. It had to be said that this great tribulation was far beyond any emperor's tribulation Lin Sun had encountered before. Not only did it last a long time, but its killing power was extremely terrible. If Lin Sun hadn't made enough preparations, he wouldn't have been able to hold on until now. Boom! When Lin Sun made it to the end, in the reign of thunder tribulation, Lin Sun only had a wisp of collapsed will and a little consciousness left. Tut! He let out a shout. The rain of thunder was like a torrent, bathing his spirit in it. His flesh, tendons, skin, viscera, and meridians, which had been smashed by the thunder tribulation before, all gathered together. Looking from a distance, there seemed to be a huge, dazzling ball of thunder and lightning under the sky, constantly emitting the surging rhythm of life. After a full hour, the ball of light, which had become bright and dazzling like the sun, suddenly burst into pieces. In the rain of light, a tall figure emerged. It was Lin Sun. At this moment, his whole body was illusory. His tendons and bones seemed to be made of divine gold juice. His skin was as white as jade, overflowing with brilliant Taoist light. The blood and qi in his body were like a surging ocean, full of surging vitality. Even his hair was flowing with the mysterious charm of the Great Way. In his sea of consciousness, his dharma was thousands of meters high, evolving into the shape of a furnace, with immortal momentum to suppress the world. All kinds of mysteries of the Great Way lingered around him, and the sound of Taoist sound resounded like the sound of nature, sacred and boundless. The greatest change was in his life emperor realm. The sky, the earth, the sun, the moon, the mountains and rivers and everything on Earth all contained traces of Taoist patterns, like the veins on leaves, the veins on rocks, the undulating curves of the Earth, the orbit of the sun and moon, and the scale of the changes in latitude and longitude. These subtle changes made the whole life Emperor realm glow with a new atmosphere, just like the real world. Every grass and every tree contained the subtle truth. This was the obvious mark of the security-reaching realm. This was also the cultivation that could be possessed by the 5th level of the Emperor realm. After meditating for a long time, Lin Sun's eyes showed a touch of satisfaction. Security-reaching Emperor realm. This realm is really wonderful. He'd already noticed that his combat strength had undergone a tremendous change. The 9th level of the Emperor realm is a natural moat. Those who have the power of a Tao can't be shaken. I just don't know if I can break this eternal law. While thinking, Lin Sun sat cross-legged and began to stabilize his realm. 3 days later, Lin Sun stood up and released the monkey. He decided to continue the operation. Looking at Lin Sun, who was in good condition and had obviously broken through a realm, the monkey's eyes became erratic, and he became more and more obedient along the way. Lin Sun saw all this, but he didn't say anything. Another 10 days passed in a hurry. Up to this point, Lin Sun had collected more than 100 Origin Tao crystals, and the number of Origin worlds he had explored had also reached more than 100. But he still didn't find any trace of a Lin family. The only good news was that he was getting closer and closer to the core of the origin of myriad Taoists. Fellow Taoist, in the next Origin world, there is a mysterious person with an extremely strange temperament. As long as we don't provoke him, we can leave by passing through about 3 Origin worlds, and we will reach the core of the origin of myriad Taoists. The monkey suddenly reminded, fellow Taoist, remember not to provoke that guy. Otherwise, you and I will be trapped there forever. Lin Sun raised his eyebrows. Is he very strong? The monkey's expression was solemn. He is unimaginably strong, and I can't see through him at all. A long time ago, I once traveled with some fellow Taoists, including some 8th and 9th level of the Emperor realm. But when we were asking for directions, 2 of our Taoist friends accidentally offended him because of their inappropriate words. Guess what happened? Without waiting for Lin Sun to answer, the monkey said in a low voice, those 2 Taoist friends had their memories wiped out in the blink of an eye and turned into chess pieces in the chessboard world. P.S. On the last day of the month, those who have a monthly ticket can vote. Otherwise, it will be invalid in the morning. Chapter 2466. Chessboard World. Lin Sun was surprised. The monkey said, that's right. That mysterious fellow used his own great Tao to refine a chessboard. It's like a vast world within it, and all the characters who had their memories wiped out by him became chess pieces in that vast world. Lin Sun nodded and entered the next world of Origin with the monkey. The world was vast, and the boundless land was actually barren to the extreme. There were no mountains, no rivers, and no plants. It was completely empty and desolate. But after entering this place, the monkey seemed extremely nervous and timid. He didn't even dare to speak. He just winked at Lin Sun, telling him to be careful. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes and swept forward with the monkey. This world of Origin was indeed unusual. It showed a desolate scene, as if it was a place where all things were extinct. He couldn't even feel the fluctuation of spiritual qi or Tao. After half an hour, a bare old tree appeared on the horizon in the distance. Its branches were like swords, reaching toward the sky. The roots exposed on the ground were like rocks. A skinny figure sat in front of the roots. His beard and hair were scraggly. He was looking down at a chessboard in front of him. He was motionless like a clay statue. The whole world, a tree, a person, and a chessboard. Obviously, the skinny figure was the mysterious weirdo mentioned by the monkey. He was a terrifying existence who could erase the memories of emperors in a flash. The monkey was trembling with nervousness. He winked at Lin Sun, telling him to ignore him and go straight ahead, because there was an illusory door not far behind the withered tree. As long as they passed through this door, they could reach the core of the origin of all Tao. Lin Sun thought for a while and didn't use his divine senses to check it. He retracted his gaze and walked toward the door according to the monkey's guidance. The world was silent. There wasn't even the sound of wind. The silence was oppressive. But when Lin and Monkey crossed the withered tree and walked a short distance, a dry and hoarse voice suddenly rang out. "That's right. Do you want to play chess?" It was just 3 words, but they were like thunder. The monkey was so shocked that his body went limp. He cried out involuntarily, "It's over." Lin Sun turned his head and saw that under the withered tree, the skinny figure who had been staring at the chessboard had already looked over. That gaze was pure like an infant's, clear to the point of being without the slightest impurity. Yet it was like a mirror that was capable of reflecting the myriad of phenomena in the starry sky. Being stared at by him, Lin Sun's body tightened slightly, but he immediately relaxed and said calmly, "Why do you want to play chess with me?" The skinny figure pointed at the chessboard before him. "At the very beginning of the primordial era, I entered this place and used the 10,000 Daos of Genesis energy I comprehended to refine this chessboard. After countless years of constant refinement, this chessboard already contains the 10,000 Daos of Genesis aura." Lin Sun's pupils contracted. This old man was from the earliest era of absolute beginning. Moreover, he had refined the mysteries of the 10,000 Daos origins into a chessboard. Just this method alone was already terrifying. "You must have come for the mystery of the origin of the 10,000 Daos. But I might as well tell you that now that the spiritual chi is recovering, the core mystery of the origin of the 10,000 Daos has been constantly released and spread to the outside world. You ought to have noticed that the spirit energy in the outside world is growing madly, while all sorts of fortuitous encounters of the Tao have appeared like bamboo after the rain. The situation in the world has undergone a shocking change, and it's like an unprecedented great era has arrived. This is the power emitted by the core of the origin of the 10,000 Daos. And this also means that it is impossible for you to master the complete origin of the 10,000 Daos on this trip." As he said more, the voice of the skinny figure changed from dry and hoarse to deep and clear. "In that case, why don't you come and play a game with me?" Monkey was so nervous that he was about to collapse. He hissed, "You can't agree. You can't agree. Otherwise, your memory will be erased, and you will become a pawn in the chessboard." The skinny figure ignored Monkey and just looked at Lin Sun. Lin Sun fell into silence. The words of the skinny old man made him suddenly realize one thing. The revival of spiritual chi and the coming of the great era caused drastic changes in the mortal world. Why? The skinny old man had already given the answer. It was because the core power of the origin of the 10,000 Daos was constantly releasing and spreading. But in this way, it also meant that the core power of the origin of the 10,000 Daos was like melting ice and snow. It was no longer complete. As time went on, sooner or later it would dry up and die. No matter who it was. Under such circumstances, it was impossible to understand the complete mystery of the origin of the 10,000 Daos. Thinking of this, Lin Sun couldn't help but laugh at himself. For a month, he had been trekking in different secret realms. In the end, he found that the ultimate mystery had become an illusion. This feeling was like drawing water with a wicker basket. However, Lin Sun didn't feel upset. Along the way, he had collected more than 100 pieces of the origin of the 10,000 Daos. Their value was completely immeasurable. "Even if I can't get the core mystery of the origin of the 10,000 Daos, I have no interest in playing with you." Lin Sun refused. The skinny figure said, "If you win, you can take away this chessboard containing the origin of the 10,000 Daos. If you lose, you will become a chess piece in this chessboard." The meaning contained in this sentence was enough to make all the ancestors in the world crazy. Lin Sun was also stunned and said, "From the beginning of the primitive times to the present, it's been countless years. It's not easy to condense such a chessboard. If I win in the game, are you really willing to give it to me?" The skinny figure said, "There are winners and losers in the game. I've been sitting here for countless years, but so far no one has been able to win this chessboard. In other words, he had never lost since the beginning of time. After thinking about it, Lin Sun still refused and planned to leave. You guessed wrong. I'm just looking for some clansmen, not for the origin of the 10,000 Daos. Looking for someone? The skinny figure was stunned and murmured, "Is there anything more important than understanding the great Tao in this world?" Lin Sun didn't intend to pay attention to him anymore. The skinny figure said, "Is there anyone you're looking for among them?" After that, a prosperous world appeared in the void. There were countless cities and countless living beings resided there. From the nobles to the commoners, all sorts of people lived there, forming a scene of the boundless mortal world. Lin Sun looked up, and in an instant, he caught many familiar figures. Zhao Tailai, Zhao Xinga, Lin Zhong, Lin Huan, Mr. Vulture, Zhu Laos, and some of them became rural private school teachers, some became squires, some were young masters of noble families, and some were. In the mortal world, these familiar faces from all those years ago were like the myriad of living beings in the mortal world, and each of them had their own joys, sorrows, joys, sorrows, joys, sorrows, joys, sorrows, joys, sorrows, and spices. But when Lin Sun was about to sense it carefully, the emerging world disappeared. "It seems that the person you're looking for is among them," the skinny figure said. Lin Sun stared at him with his dark eyes. "Did you erase their memories and turn them to chess pieces in the chessboard world?" The skinny figure said calmly, "Play with me. If you win, I'll tell you." Lin Sun went straight to the withered tree, looked at the skinny figure with scraggly beard and hair, and said, "How do we play?" In the distance, the monkey was in a daze. He probably realized that Lin Sun was doomed this time. "Take this world as the chess cage, and the great Tao you and I hold as the chess pieces," the skinny figure said. Numerous crisscrossing checkerboards suddenly appeared in this desolate and dried-up world, and it was like an enormous net of the heavens had been spread out. Half of it was black, and the other half was white. The difference was clear. The chess squares are the battlefield for the great Tao. You and I each hold a world. Whoever's territory falls into the enemy's hands loses. The skinny figure stood up and said, "You can choose one of the black and white worlds." Lin Sun nodded. His figure flashed and came to the world covered by the black chess squares, confronting the skinny figure from afar. "Are there any rules about the game?" The skinny figure shook his head. "The black and white games are the battle of the great Tao. You can exert all your skills and attack at will." "Okay." Lin Sun nodded. The skinny figure waved his sleeve, "Rise." Boom! Under his feet, in the white chess square world, a star condensed by the power of the great Tao emerged in each chess square. Each star was condensed by the law of the great Tao and was full of the supreme and boundless aura. In an instant, countless stars emitted different divine brilliance, making the white world brilliant and dazzling. The most amazing thing was that although these stars were in different chess squares, they were circulating along a complicated and wonderful track, echoing each other, and it was natural. It was like a grand scene of the integration of all Tao. "If you can break the world of the great Tao in this white chess square, I lose." The skinny figure's voice was very calm, full of absolute confidence, like a god who saw through all hypocrisy and stood above the heavens. Lin Sun thought. In the black world beneath his feet, a cauldron appeared. It faintly possessed an everlasting and unique charm. The furnace covered the black world, and all kinds of great Tao were deduced from the furnace. Good. In the distance, the emaciated figure's eyes were bright like the sun, and he exclaimed with admiration, "In these countless years, amongst all the people I've encountered, only a few possess such attainments in the Grand Tao. Fellow Taoist, I hope you don't disappoint me." As he said, he flicked his fingers. Boom! In the circulation of countless stars, a ray of light rushed out and condensed into a Taoist seal, with a terrible power that could suppress all the mountains and rivers in the world. Suddenly, it rushed to the dark world where Lin Sun was and slammed down. Tut! Lin Sun's black eyes were like lightning. The furnace steamed, and a Taoist sword emerged and slashed out. Crack! The Taoist seal was split into two and burst and collapsed. The skinny figure was not in a hurry. As he flicked his fingers, all kinds of attack means condensed by the great Tao rushed out from the white chess square world under his feet. Some condensed into mountains, some transformed into vast seas, and some appeared as Taoist soldiers. With overwhelming momentum, they crushed towards the black chess square world where Lin Sun was. At that moment, it seemed that thousands of Tao rose together, and the world lost its color. Chapter 2467. An earth-shattering roar rang out. The stove that guarded the entire black checkerboard world shook violently, and lights splashed everywhere. Crack! Crack! In merely the blink of an eye, the two black checkerboard spaces had completely collapsed and fallen into the enemy's hands. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes slightly and ran the great way around him. The stove glowed and produced a terrifying suppressive force, which blocked the overwhelming attack. In the distance, the skinny figure smiled faintly. With such a defense, the world you control will completely fall in a moment. As he said, he waved his sleeve. Boom! 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 Divine chains rushed out like the Order of the Great Way, covering the sky and sweeping away. Each divine chain was entwined with the terrible mystery of the Great Way. Wind, cloud, thunder, lightning, metal, wood, water, fire. Countless powers were derived. This was different from a real fight, but a pure contest of the Great Way. The world was turned into a chess cage, and the Great Way was used as a pawn to attack. It was not dangerous, but once he lost, he would be reduced to a pawn on the chessboard. Completely fall? You underestimate me too much. As Lin Sun said, he activated his own Great Way, and the stove rumbled, deduced various great ways, and constantly fought against the opponent. For a time, the world was turbulent, and all kinds of terrible visions appeared, shocking the world. If there were people in the Emperor realm here, they would be shocked, because whether it was Lin Sun or the skinny figure, the power of the Great Way they controlled could be said to be world-shaking and unbelievably powerful. And in the monkey's field of vision, inconceivable scenes ceaselessly surged into appearance in the world of black and white. There was the collision of the sun, moon, and stars, the movement of mountains and rivers, ancient fiend gods charging into enemy lines, divine beasts and ferocious flying beasts wreaking havoc in the world. Those were all derived from the supreme mystery of the Great Way, and each kind of attack revealed the power to destroy the world, which was unimaginably terrifying. Go, go, go! The skinny figure was like a ruler. As he waved his sleeve, his attacks were like a storm, and he controlled thousands of great ways to sweep the 9 heavens. On the other hand, Lin Sun had been fighting with the stove, and the black checkerboard world was almost besieged by all kinds of terrible attacks. From time to time, one could hear the sound of collapsing and exploding, and the outermost black chess pieces showed signs of collapsing and sinking. It seemed that they were already at a disadvantage. However, Lin Sun's stove was impregnable and unshakable. It guarded the black chessboard world for a while and was doomed to be destroyed. In the distance, the skinny figure was not in a hurry. Instead, he showed great interest and kept looking at Lin's stove. He'd already discerned that it was the embodiment of Lin Sun's Grand Tao, and it was extraordinary. Even though it was like this, his movements weren't slow in the slightest. His attacks grew even more ferocious, and he revealed a domineering and overbearing posture. Rumble, the world turned upside down, and the sun and moon lost their light. Lin Sun had never experienced such a game and fight before. He had to defend the black checkerboard world he was in and destroy the white checkerboard world controlled by his opponent. What he could rely on was the energy of the great Taos. It seemed to be a simple and violent confrontation, but it was actually an intense battle between the great Taos of the two. At present, the skinny figure's control of the power of the great Taos was indeed extremely terrifying, and it had reached an incredible level. With his attack, the black checkerboard world controlled by Lin Sun had fallen into a state of being attacked from all sides and was in a precarious situation. Like a reef in the sea, it was being beaten by the raging waves. However, As Lin Sun gradually became familiar with this way of playing, the stove transformed by his grand Tao became more and more solid and unshakable. In this way, the impact suffered by the whole black checkerboard world was also powerfully resolved and offset. Although the attack of the skinny figure was getting stronger and stronger, Lin Sun's defense was also constantly improving. In this way, one attacked and the other defended, showing an unprecedented fierce confrontation. At this time, the skinny figure also showed a serious look, and there was a touch of rare excitement and joy in his tone. He was delighted to meet his match. Lin Sun's performance at the moment was beyond his expectation, and also aroused his long-dormant fighting spirit in his heart. My fellow practitioner, next, I will show the real way of playing Go. You should be careful. The skinny figure laughed loudly and made a stroke with his palm. Boom! Countless stars rotated, and countless blooming lotuses emerged, cyan, red, white, gold. Some bloomed with thunder and lightning, some stirred up the power of wind and clouds, and some swallowed and spat the chi of yin and yang. Thousands of Taoist lotuses were blooming. In an instant, the black checkerboard world controlled by Lin Sun was covered. The process of each Taoist lotus, from blooming to withering, deduced a kind of grand Tao from the beginning to the most brilliant change. Thousands of Taoist lotuses were like thousands of grand Tao being released and deduced to the extreme. Such a horrible scene was enough to make the Emperor realm feel cold. Lin Sun's face was as calm as before, but his eyes were surging with frightening divine light. He ran his cultivation with all his strength, integrated his state of mind, will, and spirit into the grand Tao, and used the stove to fight. Rumble, earth-shaking explosions kept ringing, and the power of the grand Tao was like a landslide and a tsunami, raging all over the world. The void collapsed, and the sky was dim, as if the end of the world was coming. But just a moment later, the skinny figure in the distance let out a cry of surprise. In the distance, even under such attacks, Lin Sun's defense was still indestructible. If so, you will lose, Lin Sun said indifferently. The skinny figure said, let's try again. Clang! He stretched out his hand, and a Taoist sword condensed by countless grand Tao appeared and chopped at the stove. It was simple, but it was obviously more terrible than the previous intensive storm-like attacks. Clang! The deafening roar sounded. The sword was blocked by the stove, and it collapsed and burst in the collision. The skinny figure was not discouraged. He kept attacking with all his strength, using thousands of Taoist lotuses. Lin Sun, on the other hand, remained motionless, defending the black checkerboard world impeccably, in spite of all the attacks coming from all directions. After a full quarter of an hour, the skinny figure fought fiercely. The look of the skinny figure finally became a lot more dignified. He began to slow down the speed of the attack, but the power of each attack doubled. But even so, he still couldn't break Lin Sun's defense. All of a sudden, the skinny figure finally couldn't calm down. If you only defend like this, the final result is nothing more than a draw. Why don't you take the initiative to attack? In his view, Lin Sun used all his grand Tao in defense. As long as he attacked, there would be many flaws, and he could no longer be as invulnerable as before. I didn't take the initiative to attack before, because I wanted to see your attainments in the grand Tao. Now it seems that it's just SOSO. Lin Sun's voice was indifferent. Just SOSO. The skinny figure was stunned, as if he couldn't believe that he would get such an evaluation. It was the first time for him to hear such an evaluation in these countless years. He said slowly, my fellow practitioner, there's no proof. Why don't you let me have a taste of your elegant demeanor? Yes. Lin Sun spat out a word gently. In an instant, he waved his sleeve, and a big abyss appeared in the stove, sweeping across the sky. The abyss was deep, boundless, and immeasurable. Wherever it passed, it swallowed the sky and the earth. Boom! In the earth-shattering collision, the white checkerboard world controlled by the skinny figure was instantly crushed, and the stars of the grand Tao distributed in it were obliterated and swallowed. The pupils of the skinny figure contracted, and he counterattacked at the first possible moment. Tut! Countless stars flickered and circulated, echoing with each other to form a vast starry sky, and it intended to suppress the big abyss within it. But what caught the skinny figure off guard was that as the big abyss moved horizontally, it seemed to show a crushing posture of destroying and swallowing everything. In just a few breaths, the vast starry sky seemed to have been torn apart. Rise! He was fearless in the face of danger, and he constantly used myriad Tao to the extreme to resist. My Grand Tao contains myriad Tao and evolves myriad Tao. It's unprecedented. It's futile for you to resist with the power of myriad Tao. Lin Sun sighed softly. He thought of his fourth senior brother Ling Xuanzi, who also used myriad Tao to recognize myriad Tao, and it was similar to the Tao possessed by this skinny old man. The only difference was that this skinny old man had been meditating here since the beginning of primeval times. Until now, his Tao had only stagnated in the Emperor realm. If it was his fourth senior brother, he would have probably surpassed the Emperor ancestor long ago. Boom! The big abyss moved horizontally with a crushing momentum, swallowing the stars and devouring myriad Tao. It threw the white checkerboard world into chaos, and the checkerboards collapsed and fell one by one. No matter how the skinny figure resisted and resolved it, it was all in vain. In the end, along with the shocking turbulence, the white checkerboard world completely collapsed, showing a state of destruction. Seeing this, Lin Sun immediately stopped. In the distance, the skinny figure stood in the void in a daze. His beard and hair were scraggly, and his expression changed indeterminately. It seemed that he couldn't accept such a blow. Countless years of deduction and painstaking effort to temper this chess game. In the end, it was crushed by the opponent with a single move. There were no twists and turns. When the opponent took the initiative to attack from a defensive position, he was already invincible. It was too simple and even rude. But the skinny figure knew that this meant that he was far inferior to Lin Sun in terms of mastering the Tao and in the competition between the Tao. After a long time, the skinny figure smiled self-deprecatingly and looked straight at the sky. For countless years, I've been obsessed with the game of chess, but I didn't know that my Tao was trapped in the black and white checkerboard. Now, I've suffered a defeat, and I realize that what I want should be beyond the game of chess. He seemed to have understood and figured it out, but his face was full of loneliness. After countless years, he finally realized how stupid he was. Immediately, he looked at Lin Sun and cupped his hands to salute. Although I lost today's game, I got a chance to wake up to reality. Thanks to you, fellow Taoist, for your kindness. His words were sincere, revealing a sense of relief as if he had broken the shackles. P.S. On the first day of the month, I'd like to ask for a guaranteed monthly ticket. Chapter 2468. In the distance, Monkey was stunned. 1. What was the origin of this guy? How could he have such a terrifying cultivation? In the previous game, Monkey's spirit had been in a state of shock because it was too terrifying. But when he saw the skinny figure bow and admit defeat, how could he not understand that this guy who called himself Emperor Daoyuan had won the game? Now that the game is over, please fulfill your promise. Lin Sun's figure floated down from the void and looked at the skinny figure. Of course, the skinny figure waved his sleeve and a chessboard emerged. With a flow of Taoist light, the bustling world of the mortal world emerged again. After Lin Sun's identification, the skinny figure operated the chessboard and released the trapped members of the imperial family and the Lin family. Zhao Xingye, Zhao Tailai, and other members of the imperial city accounted for 40%, and Lin Zhong, Lin Huayuan, and other members of the Lin family accounted for 60%. Lin Sun even saw Chirps, which was as round as a small ball. There were thousands of them in total. However, each of them seemed to be in a deep sleep and had no consciousness. Don't worry, they will recover their past memories in 3 days. The skinny figure said. After checking for a while, Lin Sun collected all the members of the royal family and the clansmen of the Lin family who were rescued. At this moment, he felt completely relaxed, as if a big stone had been removed from his heart. Earlier, they relied on the token my brother gave them to arrive here immediately. Their experience in the chessboard world can be considered as a form of fortune for them. Once they wake up, they will comprehend different mysteries of the great ways. The skinny figure said, "Your brother?" Lin Sun was surprised. The skinny figure said, "Yes, he is the same as me, a practitioner at the beginning of primitive times. However, we pursue different great ways. After I closed myself here, I never saw him again. However, I still recognize his token." "Can I have a look at that token?" Lin Sun asked. The skinny figure said with a smile, "I can't." He took out a token, on which a line of wanton and overbearing handwriting was engraved. The abandoned one. "Do so." Lin Sun was stunned. "Do so is your elder brother?" The skinny figure nodded. "His name is Bao Xing, and he calls himself Old Man Du. My name is Mian Yu, and I call myself Old Man Yi." Lin Sun finally understood. The reason the imperial family and the members of the Lin family were able to enter the origin hive and smoothly arrive at this origin world was naturally because of the token that Du So had given them. In other words, when Du So left Xiao Empire, he must have speculated that the era of spiritual energy recovery was coming. Embracing stars and sleeping moon abode, Lin Sun thought. In this way, Du So should have known the secret of the origin of all Tao a long time ago, so he chose to stay in the mortal world. "It seems like fellow Taoist also recognizes my elder brother," Iso said. Lin Sun nodded and told him about his acquaintance with Du South as he already left. Iso sighed. "This is just as well, abandoning the great Tao and seeking only oneself. Perhaps only at the other side of the starry sky will he be able to achieve his wish on the great Tao." As he said, he handed the chessboard in his hand to Lin Sun. "Taoism peer, please accept this chessboard." The chessboard was round on the outside and square on the inside, as if it was made of black gold. The chess pieces on it were interlaced, as if traces of the great Tao were emerging on it. Wisps of chaotic aura diffused from the chessboard, flowing with various magical fluctuations of the great Tao, which looked very mysterious. Lin Sun shook his head and refused. This chessboard was condensed by Iso with countless years of painstaking efforts. It contained the aura of the origin of all Tao, which could be called a priceless treasure. But Iso gave the chessboard to Lin Sun without any explanation. "Take it. First, you have to accept the loss. Second, I have already understood that if I continue to stubbornly deduce this thing, I will be trapped here forever. If you don't want it, I will destroy it now." Lin Sun agreed and put away the chessboard. Iso pointed out, "Although this chessboard contains only the aura of the origin of all Tao, the magic imprinted in it is enough for you to comprehend the secret of the ancestor realm." As he said, he pointed to an illusory door in the distance and said, "Enter it, and you will arrive at the origin of all Tao. However, it is full of the oppressive force of order. No one can take away the power of the origin of all Tao. But with your current cultivation, it is not a big problem for you to cultivate in it for a period of time." Speaking of this, Iso glanced at the monkey in the distance and suddenly said, "Can I take away this ghost spiritual monkey?" Lin Sun was stunned. "What do you want it for?" Iso smiled and said, "People's hearts are full of evil and unpredictable. This spiritual monkey is born to recognize the subtleties of people's hearts. I want to use its talent to examine my Taoist heart." Lin Sun agreed readily. Iso waved his hand, and the spirit of the monkey flew over and fell into his palm. Then he turned around and walked away. "My fellow Taoists, goodbye." The voice was ethereal. Lin Sun couldn't help asking, "Why are you in a hurry? I have broken the cage and regained my freedom. Why do I still stay in this damn place? For countless years, I have made too many mistakes." The voice with emotion was still spreading, but Iso's figure had disappeared. Lin Sun stood alone for a moment, and then put away the chessboard made by E South. Then he looked at the invisible door in the distance. "Well, let's go back to Heart Cleansing Peak first. When everything is arranged properly, I will go to the origin of all Tao to explore." Lin Sun made a decision and turned back along the original road. Heart Cleansing Peak. A green lotus in the center of the pond suddenly swayed and scattered countless patterns of tau, which gradually outlined a door. This scene immediately awakened Lower Five, who had been guarding this place, and he became alert. When he saw Lin Sun's tall figure coming out, he relaxed and smiled brightly. "Elder brother, did your trip go well?" Lin Sun nodded with a smile. At the same time, he spread his divine soul and instantly sensed the place where the 5 Taoist bodies were. Whoosh! After a while, the 5 Taoist bodies returned and integrated into Lin Sun's body. Then, the experiences and memories of the 5 doppelgangers during this period all poured into Lin Sun's mind. So many things have happened in the past month. Lin Sun digested it for a long time. 1 month ago, with the uprooting of all the forces in the ancient Desolation territory, Heart-Cleansing Peak, which was guarded by Lin Sun, became the most eye-catching place in the world. During the period of Lin Sun's absence, many practitioners came to visit him every day. It could be said that Heart-Cleansing Peak was unprecedentedly grand. Many major forces came to worship Heart-Cleansing Peak in order to get Lin Sun's protection. But without exception, they were directly refused by Ahu. However, this did not completely extinguish the enthusiasm of those practitioners. Every day, there were still countless practitioners from all over the world coming to Heart-Cleansing Peak. Some came to see connections, some to be apprentices, and some just to watch the fun. Lin Sun didn't bother to pay attention to these trivial things. There were 2 things that really caught his attention. First, the Sea Clan forces in the Soul Oblivion Sea united and formed the Thousand Beasts War League. In the name of the Thousand Beasts War League, they decided to enter the myriad Tao realm to seek the fortune of the Great Era and seize the Blessed Abode. All this made the situation near the East Sea tense again. It was said that there were many great emperors gathered in the Demons War League. The reason why they formed an alliance was to fight against the threat from Lin Sun together. The reason was that the power Lin Sun showed in the battle of slaughtering all the orthodoxies in the ancient Desolation territory was so terrifying that anyone would feel great pressure. There were bound to be many battles and killings in the Soul Oblivion Sea to seek fortune in the myriad Tao world. In a short time, they might not be able to provoke Lin Sun, but it would be bad if there was any conflict after a long time. It was based on this long-term consideration that the Demons War League was formed. Lin Sun didn't care about this. With the recovery of spiritual qi in the lower world, all kinds of opportunities were constantly erupting. No matter who it was, he would not be able to help fighting for it. However, Xiao Empire had already become the myriad Tao world, and its territory had expanded hundreds of times. Sooner or later, it would evolve into a vast world comparable to the Central Earth province. Under such circumstances, it was impossible to control the whole myriad Tao world with the power possessed by Heart-Cleansing Peak. What's more, Lin Sun didn't want to unify the world and monopolize all the opportunities in the world. It was enough as long as he firmly controlled the Forbidden City, the holy land of myriad Tao. As long as they didn't provoke him, he wouldn't care too much about the killings and competitions in the myriad Tao world. The second thing was that recently, there were a lot of news in the Forbidden City that the orthodoxies in the ancient Desolation territory would make a comeback in the near future. The forces dispatched this time would be unimaginably powerful. There was no need to guess that when the forces of the ancient Desolation territory came, they would definitely seek revenge on Heart-Cleansing Peak. It seems that in order to control the lower world with the recovery of spiritual qi, those orthodoxies in the ancient Desolation territory are crazy enough to pay any price. Lin Sun's black eyes were slightly cold. However, he still didn't care. Now the lower world was still in a rapid change. At present, the power that could be accommodated was only at the peak of the first level of the Emperor Realm. This also meant that no matter who the Emperor Realm was, as long as he appeared in the myriad Tao world, his cultivation was bound to be suppressed to the first level of the Emperor Realm. For Lin Sun, the power of the 5 Tao bodies was enough to sweep the myriad Tao world. Before long, Lin Sun came to the top of Heart-Cleansing Peak. Lin Sun waved his sleeves and released the members of the imperial royal family and the clansmen of Lin family from the Tower of No End. On the way back to the outside world, Zhao Tailai and Lin Zhong had already woken up, but they didn't understand the situation. Until now, when they stood in this hall and looked at Lin Sun standing with a smile in the distance, everyone couldn't help but widen their eyes as if they were dreaming. Chapter 2469. Young Master, is it really you? The silence was broken by an excited and trembling voice. It was Lin Zhong. When Lin Sun first entered heart-cleansing peak of the Forbidden City, Lin Zhong took good care of him. But after so many years, Lin Sun was no longer a teenager. Lin Zhong's hair had turned white and was covered with the color of wind and frost. Trembling all over, he rushed forward 2 steps and hesitated for a moment, as if he was afraid of offending Lin Sun. Lin Sun took the initiative to step forward, hugged Lin Zhong's shoulder, and said, "Granddad Zhong, I'm back." Lin Zhong nodded excitedly. "It's great that you're back." At this time, all the people in the hall were overwhelmed with emotions. Zhao Tailai, Zhao Xingye, Lin Huayuan, and others were all old people who had witnessed Lin Sun's rise. Now, many years later, seeing Lin Sun again made them excited and unable to control themselves. Chirp! With a crisp sound, a ball of fire rushed to Lin Sun. Its round, ball-like body showed amazing softness at this moment. It forcibly squeezed itself between Lin Sun and Lin Zhong, and even rubbed against Lin Sun's chest. This little guy was Chirp. It was also the first friend Lin Sun picked up on his way to Ziyao Empire when he left Feiyun Village. After many years, Chirp became rounder and rounder. With a random pinch, it would spit out a wisp of bright golden flame. "Grandfather, he's the head of our Lin family, the one who covers the entire capital?" A dignified teenager asked curiously. He stood beside Lin Xiefeng, who was Lin Sun's cousin according to the seniority. Crack! Lin Xiefeng slapped the teenager's head and scolded, "This is your granduncle." Lin Sun was stunned. Seeing many boys and girls of Lin family looking at him with curiosity, Lin Sun was in a trance. It turned out that not only Yi Qi became a grandfather, but also the clansmen of Lin family had already spread out in the years when Lin Sun left and a batch of juniors had emerged. What a great change! Lin Sun sighed with emotion. "Young master, you are still the same." Lin Zhong grinned. "Come on, let me introduce you to these little guys of our Lin family." As he spoke, he began to introduce them one by one. Among those young people, some called Lin Sun Uncle, and some called Lin Sun Uncle Grandpa. All of them showed that he was an elder now. After Lin Zhong finished his introductions, Zhao Tailai also stepped forward and said, "You are the son-in-law appointed by my elder brother. How can you not understand our Zhao family's relatives? Come, let me introduce you." After the introductions, Lin Sun finally figured out the situation in the field. In the years that he had been away, the Lin family had become increasingly prosperous and prosperous. They had not encountered any setbacks. Even when the revival of spirit qi broke out, they had immediately taken their clansmen and hid in the Green Lotus secret realm together with the imperial family members. They had not suffered any losses. This made Lin Sun completely relaxed. But in next to no time, he acutely noticed that even though everyone was brimming with warmth, smiles, and seemed to be close to him, no matter who it was, all of them more or less carried a form of faint reverence. After thinking for a while, Lin Sun understood. Presently, even though he'd restrained his aura to the limit since a long time ago, the shapeless bearing he'd tempered from roaming the world and engaging in battles for many years was still present. Just like a tiger, even if it was lying lazily, it was enough to make all beasts awe. This kind of thing was also rooted in the root. Lin Sun couldn't change it all. On this day, Lin Sun set up a banquet on the top of Heart Cleansing Peak. He gathered all his relatives and friends, including the imperial family, Green Deer School, the commune of spiritual tattooists, and Golden Hall. They drank and chatted merrily, which was very lively. In the next few days, Lin Sun stayed on Heart Cleansing Peak with his relatives and friends. They were happy and harmonious, ignoring the changes of the outside world. For Lin Sun, There would only be fewer and fewer days of reunion like this in the future, so it was more and more precious. Until 10 days later, Lin Sun decided to set up a Taoist orthodoxy named Original Taoism sect. It took the meaning of everything is renewed and everything is renewed. Lin Zhong, Vulture, Lin Huan, Shiyu, Zhao Xingye, Zhao Tailai, and other seniors served as elders and performed their respective duties. The first generation of disciples was selected from the Lin family, the Imperial family, Green Deer School, the commune of spiritual tattooists, and Golden Hall. In addition, there were branches of martial arts school, penalty school, alchemy school, refining school, spiritual tattoo school, ancient record school, beast taming school, and so on. In addition, there were other trivial matters, which Lin Sun handed over to others to complete. Lin Sun, on the other hand, organized all the cultivation manuals and cultivation technique jade slips that he had gathered over the years. Other than the inheritances of Mount Fonsuan, all the other inheritances were classified by him, revised, and stored in the Hall of Ancient Records as the inheritance of the primeval Dao sect. In addition, Lin Sun took out all the treasures collected in the starry sky over the years as the cultivation resources of Original Taoism sect, except for the useful ones. Until all this was done, Lin Sun was much more relaxed. It was easy to set up a Taoist orthodoxy. He just needed to choose a blessed place and recruit disciples. But to set up an eternal Taoist orthodoxy, it could not be completed in a short time. It needed time to precipitate and temper in the world. There was no Taoist orthodoxy that only relied on one person to survive. The only thing Lin Sun could do was to do his best to lay an unshakable foundation for the original Taoist sect. In the future, he would still have to rely on the sect to pass it down from generation to generation. 1 month later, when the news of Lin Sun establishing the original Taoist sect spread out from Forbidden City, it immediately shook the world and attracted the attention of countless cultivators in the world. Quickly go to Forbidden City. Emperor Lin's actions will definitely change the situation in the world. In the future, the original Taoist sect will probably reign supreme in the entire myriad Tao world. If I can enter the original Taoist sect at this time, then I'll be equivalent to a founding elder. It's enough to make the people around me ascend to heaven. The entire world was in an uproar because of this. In a city, a man and a woman who were in the midst of getting married stopped their wedding ceremony when they heard the news. They immediately packed their bags and rushed towards Forbidden City. At the same time, countless cultivators set off overnight to Forbidden City. Some of them wanted to join the original Taoist sect, while others wanted to join their children. That spectacular scene left countless people dumbfounded. After learning that Lin Sun had established the original Taoist sect, the Thousand Demon War Alliance in the Soul Oblivion Sea also caused a great sensation. Many Sea Clan creatures were also excited. They quietly sneaked into the myriad Tao world and planned to go to Forbidden City. If they could join the original Taoist sect, that would naturally be excellent. After all, the original Taoist sect didn't have any rules. They didn't accept the creatures of the Soul Oblivion Sea as disciples. In short, the establishment of the original Taoist sect was definitely a major event that couldn't be ignored in the entire lower realm. Everyone knew that the significance of this matter was so far-reaching that it was enough to affect the future structure of the lower realm. Lin Sun didn't know about all of this. After finalizing the matters of the original Taoist sect, all the other trivial matters were handed over to Lin Zhong and the others to deal with. He left behind the 5 great Tao bodies to guard the heart-cleansing peak while he entered the Green Lotus Secret Realm with his original body. This time, it only took Lin Sun less than 10 days to arrive at the origin world where Iso was. The world was barren, leaving only a bare old tree with its roots entangled in it. Not far from the old tree, there was a door that seemed to be nothing, which led to the origin of the myriad Tao. Whoosh! Without delay, Lin Sun's figure swept into it. In the blink of an eye, a world that seemed to be in chaos appeared within their field of vision. It was impossible to tell how large or vast it was, and various energies of the Grand Tao rumbled and poured down like a torrent. Gorgeous and multicolored lights of the Tao were like surging waves that swept wantonly through the chaos. Being in it, it was like coming to the original chaos of the universe. Lin Sun was shocked at the first moment. Was this the origin of the myriad Tao? It was chaotic and indescribable. Myriad Tao rose from it, releasing the most primitive and essential aura, vast and heavy. Boom! A horrible power of order suddenly emerged, oppressing Lin Sun's body. He subconsciously ran his cultivation to resist the power of order. This power of order, born in the chaos, is obviously more powerful than the Order Phoenix Flame and the original Order of Nirvana. Lin Sun sensed it calmly. It seems to be no different from the forbidden power of order controlled by Shi Tiandi. Fortunately, the power of order here hasn't revealed its true killing power. Otherwise, I'm afraid I can't resist it with my cultivation. Lin Sun realized that Iso's warning was not wrong. Although the power of order in the origin of the myriad Tao was terrifying, it would only oppress the cultivators who entered it, but not kill them. This meant that as long as one could resist this kind of oppression, one could cultivate here. Soon, Lin Sun noticed that the power of the Great Way was released and spreading here. The recovery of spiritual qi in the lower world was related to this. However, according to Lin Sun's calculation, it would take at least hundreds of years to release all the power of the myriad Tao here. After observing for a long time and finally confirming that there was no other danger here, Lin Sun began to sense the mystery of the origin of the myriad Tao. In merely an instant, he felt as if his body and mind were immersed within the womb of the Grand Tao. When he breathed through his mouth and nose, sensed with his divine sense, and even every single inch of skin on his body, he was able to sense the profundities of the Grand Tao. After a long time, Lin Sun opened his eyes, which were full of shock. If one comprehended the Tao and cultivated here, then not to mention a cultivator, even a rock or a piece of rotten wood would be able to be soaked and tainted with the profound origin energy of the Grand Tao and transform into a Tao stone or divine wood. It was incredible. However, when Lin Sun tried to collect some of the power of the myriad Tao, there was a sudden change. P.S. I'm glad I didn't stop updating today. I'm relieved. M. Chapter 2470. The terrifying power of order descended and crushed Lin Sun's probing actions. It even oppressed him to the point that he felt suffocated and staggered. The horrible power of order calmed down when he decisively gave up collecting the power of origin. Obviously, as he so said, the power of origin here could not be absorbed and refined. However, Lin Sun didn't feel unwilling. He was just testing the water. After thinking for a while, he waved his sleeve. Xia Ji, who had been in a state of silent cultivation, emerged and was carefully placed in the chaos. Lin Sun was relieved when he was sure that Xia Ji would not be oppressed by the power of order. In this way, Summer Solstice should also be able to experience the power of the 10,000 Daos of origin in this place and benefit her own cultivation. Lin Sun thought for a while and took out the huge golden dragon cocoon and put on the other side. Zhao Jingxian and the child in her belly were still sleeping in the golden dragon cocoon and showed no sign of breaking out. However, Lin Sun noticed that the golden dragon cocoon was emitting a more and more astonishing rhythm of life. I don't know whether that little guy is a boy or a girl. Lin Sun looked at the golden dragon cocoon quietly, and his mind was wandering. Until now, he still felt unspeakably nervous and perturbed when he thought that he was a father. Father. For Lin Sun, who had never experienced the relationship between father and son since he was a child, this role had a very special meaning. After a long time, when he felt the power of origin covering Xia Ji and the golden dragon cocoon, Lin Sun slowly closed his eyes and began to meditate to comprehend the great Tao. This was the origin of all Tao in the ancient Desolation realm, which contained the most primitive and essential treasures of the great Tao. To comprehend the Great Tao here was something that even the cultivators in the world dared not imagine. If it was spread out, even the Emperor Ancestor realm would be jealous and jealous. Gradually, as time went by, the distractions in Lin Sun's mind were completely gone. He completely forgot himself, like a baby returning to his mother's womb. In this chaos, he was wantonly immersed in the embrace of the power of origin. 3 months later, Lin Sun woke up from his meditation with an indescribable satisfaction and joy in his heart. Because in just 3 months, he had comprehended and mastered 19 new mysteries of the Great Tao, condensed them into the law of Emperor Path, and integrated them into his own cultivation. In this aspect, it was related to his own cultivation. After all, he was already at the 5th level of the Emperor realm. Ordinary cultivators couldn't compare to him when it came to comprehending a new power of the Great Tao. It was just like when one cultivated the Sword Tao to the point of perfection before cultivating the Blade Tao, then one would be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort by relying on one's past experience. It was the same for comprehending the Great Tao. On the other hand, in this place of origin, Lin Sun was able to clearly feel the most essential and primitive mystery of the Great Tao at all times, so he naturally wouldn't encounter any obstacles or bottlenecks when comprehending it. The 19 Great Tao mysteries might not cause any changes to my cultivation, but in the future, there will definitely come a time when there will be a qualitative change. Lin Sun's black eyes brightened. Just like what Yi So had said, the more laws of Tao that he comprehended and grasped, the greater the benefits he would receive when trying to break through to the monarch ancestor realm. At the moment, Lin Sun was accumulating his own cultivation. Although summer solstice hasn't woken up, the Tao runes on her body are circulating. It's obvious that she has benefited greatly from her cultivation. I just don't know if Jing Xian and the child in her belly have experienced the mystery of the origin of the myriad Tao. Lin Sun was looking at summer solstice and the golden dragon cocoon. After a while, he stood up, waved his sleeves, and put away summer solstice and the golden dragon cocoon. Then, he turned around and left the place of origin of the myriad Tao. In the past 3 months, the oppression of the order in the place of origin of the myriad Tao had been growing stronger. If he persisted blindly, summer solstice and the golden dragon cocoon would not be able to bear it, not to mention Lin Sun. Lin Sun decided to visit Old Toad and the others first, and then return to the place of origin of the myriad Tao to see how long he could persist. Swish! In the origin mother nest, Lin Sun's figure flickered across the world of origin. 2 days later, in a secret world where rocks were as hard as iron, a series of deafening roars resounded continuously. In the distant horizon, a butterfly that was 10,000 feet long with pitch-black wings and a body that flowed with illusory light was fluttering its wings under the sky. The nearby space seemed to have been cut by a sharp blade, and countless long and narrow cracks were torn open, spreading in all directions. Looking from afar, the void was torn into countless pieces like a cloth. It was as if a spatial storm was taking place. When Lin Sun arrived, he couldn't help showing a strange expression when he saw this scene. The giant butterfly was none other than the demonic sky-shattering butterfly, Xiao Tian. However, unlike before, Xiao Tian's entire body was filled with the aura of a martial monarch. Although he was only a first-layer martial monarch, the strength of his divine abilities and his terrifying aura were incomparable to an ordinary martial monarch. Master, I've stepped into the Emperor realm and completely awakened the space-tearing supernatural power. In the future, if an enemy uses the space teleportation to escape from under my nose, they'll definitely be courting death. Far away, little Tian broke through the sky at an astonishing speed. Its dark wings, like the eternal night, flapped and tore a circle of void vortexes in the surroundings. Its power was astonishing. Then, there was a flash of light, and little Tian transformed into a young girl. Her eyebrows were delicate and soft, and she had big eyes with long eyelashes. Her small face was as white as jade, with a touch of bashfulness. It was completely different from the cold, gloomy, and heart-palpitating momentum of her body before. Even Lin Sun couldn't help being stunned, and then he smiled. You look so obedient. Little Tian lowered her head, rubbed the corners of her clothes with both hands, and said shyly, This is the first time I've transformed into a human body. I don't know if it's okay. Her voice was timid. Lin Sun laughed. Who would have thought that little Tian was a girl, and so shy and easily embarrassed? Come on, let's go find little Silver. With that, Lin Sun walked into the distance. Little Tian hurriedly followed him. When her figure moved, there was no sound, no fluctuation in the space, and her speed was extremely amazing. Lin Sun had already realized that as a descendant of the demonic sky-splitting butterfly, little Tian's innate talent in the law of space was really reflected after she reached the Emperor realm. Several hours later, Lin Sun saw little Silver. Little Silver didn't change much. He was still 3 inches tall and looked like a teenager, dressed in white, handsome and cold. But Lin Sun noticed that little Silver's breath was completely different from before. That was the breath of the Emperor realm. Moreover, on little Silver's forehead, a new vertical eye appeared. When the vertical eye opened, it reflected the terrible scene of gods and demons and the collapse of all things, which was extremely terrifying. Master, from today on, I can easily devour the soul of the Emperor realm. Little Silver's words were calm, with a hint of arrogance, but the joy in his eyes betrayed his inner excitement. Good, good. Lin Sun nodded repeatedly. Little Silver had also smoothly advanced to the Emperor realm, which made him feel a lot more relaxed. Hey, who is this girl? Why is her breath so familiar? Little Silver couldn't help being stunned when he saw little Tian beside Lin Sun. The shy little Tian immediately blushed, lowered her head, and stammered, It's me, little Silver gasped and stammered. I've always treated you as a brother. How did you become a woman? He looked as if he had been struck by lightning, which amused Lin Sun. But the next moment, little Silver beamed and clapped his hands. But that's good. I have one less brother and one more little sister. It couldn't be better. With a swoosh, he jumped onto little Tian's shoulder, put his ear next to the girl's translucent ear, and said with a smile, You used to stand on my shoulder all the time. From now on, it's my turn to stand on your shoulder. As he spoke, he purposely blew into Lil Tian's ears, causing Lil Tian's ears to turn red. Seeing this, little Silver smiled smugly. Little Tian seemed so embarrassed that she couldn't stand it anymore. She raised her hand and pinched little Silver, saying fiercely, If you laugh at me again, I'll crush you. Little Silver was dumbfounded. Crush him? Little sister Tian's words were too cruel. Let's go. In the distance, Lin Sun waved. Next, Lin Sun went to find Old Toad, Alu, and Ahu. Among them, Ahu had already become an emperor. When Lin Sun came to find her, she was bathing and changing her clothes. Her fair and slender body glowed with a pure and holy luster. Her long black hair hung loosely over her shoulders, which formed a strong visual impact with her snow-white skin. After she became an emperor, her temperament had also changed. She was as beautiful as an otherworldly fairy, and her every movement was otherworldly. But when she smiled, her curved crescent eyes, slightly raised lips, and the smile on her pretty face seemed so bright and beautiful. Her voice was like the sounds of nature, cleansing one's soul. Even Lin Sun was stunned by her beauty. Ahu's beauty had always been unique. Now that she had become an emperor, her charm had also undergone a great transformation. But what puzzled Lin Sun was that Old Toad and Alu still hadn't broken through. They had been in seclusion all this time, as if they had encountered a huge barrier. Lin Sun didn't disturb them. Outsiders couldn't help one break through to become an emperor. One could only rely on oneself to break through. As for the big black bird, 3 months had passed, but this thieving bird hadn't even broken through to the quasi-emperor realm. But when he saw Lin Sun, he was still carrying the big black pot on his back. His nose was pointed at the sky, and he said arrogantly and disdainfully, I told you long ago, Lord Bird doesn't break through. Once I break through, I will become an emperor. Quasi-emperor doesn't exist on Lord Bird's Tao path. Lin Sun, Little Silver, and Ahu spat in unison. Even the shy and bashful little Tian couldn't help but roll his eyes. The big black bird didn't have any other abilities, but walked further and further on the Tao path of shamelessness and bragging. On that day, Lin Sun took Ahu, Little Silver, and Little Tian to the land of myriad Tao. They couldn't miss such a precious opportunity to comprehend the Tao. In the outside world, in these 3 months, a storm was brewing. Chapter 2471. 3 months. For Lin Sun, it was like a snap of his fingers. In the Forbidden City, too many things had happened in 3 months. These things were related to the establishment of the Yuanshi Taoist sect. Too many people from all over the world came to be apprentices, which made the Forbidden City unprecedentedly lively during this period. At the same time, Lin Zhong, Zhao Tailai, and other elders also felt great pressure. The Yuanshi Taoist sect had just been established, and all the rules and regulations were still being perfected. Although it had already been announced that it would not recruit disciples in the near future, there were still a lot of people coming to be apprentices. These apprentices seemed to show their perseverance and determination. Even if they were rejected, they still refused to leave. They stayed near Heart-Cleansing Peak every day and night. It was obvious that they didn't intend to give up easily. As a result, in just 3 months, Heart-Cleansing Peak was already overcrowded. Even the nearby housing and land prices had skyrocketed dozens of times. Finally, after the discussion of the high-level officials of the Yuanshi Taoist sect, it was decided to hold an assessment ceremony to recruit disciples 1 year later. At that time, the top 100 people who passed the assessment could become the first batch of outer disciples of the Yuanshi Taoist sect, regardless of their status. Although there were only 100 places for outer disciples, the news still caused a sensation in the world at the first time. Countless people rubbed their fists and rubbed their palms together. They studied hard and worked hard to become stronger. Countless major forces did not hesitate to spend a lot of resources just to cultivate some disciples who could pass the assessment of the Yuanshi Taoist sect. And those who stayed outside Heart-Cleansing Peak finally dispersed. The matter of recruiting disciples was finally solved effectively. But before Lin Zhong and others could breathe a sigh of relief, the news came. The Demon War League will send 10 emperors to visit Emperor Lin in the Forbidden City. A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples, which attracted the attention of the world. The Demon War League of the Soul Oblivion Sea has been coveting the opportunity of the Great Tao in the Forbidden City for a long time. They will definitely cause trouble this time. Someone analyzed, yes, if it's just a visit, why send 10 emperors? They clearly want to use such an enormous lineup to probe Imperial Monarch Lin's depths and have ulterior motives. Many people realized that a storm was about to sweep over from the Soul Annihilation Sea, and its target was Lin Sun, who is currently presiding over the Primordial Tao sect. The Primeval Tao sect has just been established, and only Imperial Monarch Lin is holding down the fort within the sect. I wonder if he'll be able to resolve this problem. Some people were worried. Those Emperor realms in the ancient Desolation realm have been killed, and their foundations have been uprooted. With Emperor Lin's power, how could he not resolve this crisis? Many people were full of confidence in Lin. No one could forget the bloody battle that took place in the Forbidden City a few months ago, and it was this battle that established Lin Sun's godlike supreme status in the hearts of all practitioners. No, it's impossible that the Demon War Alliance doesn't know how those forces in the ancient Desolation realm were destroyed, and it's impossible that they don't know how powerful Emperor Lin is. Since they came here, they must have something to rely on. Some of the big forces believe that since the Thousand Beasts War League dared to do this, they must have thought about it carefully and planned for a long time. This storm was destined to be no small matter. If they can't even overcome this difficulty, who in the world will be as eager to join the Primeval Tao sect as before? At that time, this newly established Primordial Tao sect will probably not be able to recover. The world was turbulent, and countless voices of discussion sounded. At the same time, in the Primeval Tao sect, Lin Zhong, Zhao Tailai, Zhao Xingye, and other senior officials also heard the news. They all frowned and realized the seriousness of the situation. The Primeval Tao sect had just been established. At this critical juncture, the Demon War League sent 10 Emperor realms to visit. They must have bad intentions. Even Lin Zhong and others knew that the purpose of the visit was to sound out the details of the primeval Tao sect. No, strictly speaking, it should be said that they came to sound out the details of Lin Sun. If Lin Sun didn't show the power to suppress these 10 Emperor realms, it could be foreseen that these Demon War League would take the opportunity to stir up trouble. I'll go to see the young master. Lin Zhong made a decision. In a Taoist field on the top of Heart-Cleansing Peak, nearly 100 young boys and girls were practicing martial arts. These young boys and girls were the first generation of disciples of the primeval Tao sect. They were selected from the clansmen of Lin family, the royal family of the empire, the commune of spiritual tattooists, Green Deer School, and Golden Hall. They were excellent in both talent and aptitude. But for Lin Sun, what he valued most was perseverance, temperament, and boldness. During these years of traveling around the world, Lin Sun had seen many amazing geniuses, but often only those with great perseverance, boldness, and a firm temperament could go further on the road of Tao. Heaven rewarded diligence, and diligence could make up for clumsiness. Although this saying was vulgar, it was an irrefutable truth since ancient times. Gu Yupu, the 9th senior brother, and Pu Zhen, the 11th senior brother, were all such figures. At this time, Lin Sun's Greenwood Taoist physique was holding Shi Yu's daughter Lin Lang, standing in the distance to watch these young boys and girls practice martial arts. Lin Lang nestled in Lin Sun's arms, blinking her watery eyes like a curious baby, asking questions all over the place. Some of the questions were very childish, but Lin Sun still smiled and patiently explained. He teased the little girl from time to time. "Granddad Zhong, what's the matter?" When Lin Zhong came from afar, he was noticed by Lin Sun at the first time. After hesitating for a moment, Lin Zhong told Lin Sun the news that the Demon War League sent great emperors to visit. After hearing this, Lin Sun's eyes flashed with a cold light, and then he said with a smile, "It's a piece of cake. Tell others to do what they should do. If those guys really dare to make trouble, let's see if they can bear the consequences." Seeing Lin Sun's indifferent look, Lin Zhong was stunned and couldn't help saying, "Young master, there are 10 great emperors, and they must have planned for a long time and come prepared." Lin Sun sneered, "They're just clowns. Don't worry, Granddad Zhong." Although Lin Zhong still felt a little uneasy, he nodded and hurried away. "Uncle, are we going to fight again?" Lin Long's big eyes were shining. Lin Sun knocked on her forehead and laughed. The 10 great emperors sent by the 1,000 Beast Battle League had arrived earlier than everyone had expected. Just 3 days after the news came out, 10 great emperors from different sea clans appeared outside the Forbidden City, and they didn't hide their aura at all. As soon as they appeared, they were discovered, which caused a sensation in the city. Countless people were nervous, and the atmosphere of the whole Forbidden City became depressed. Outside the city, the clouds were heavy, and the world was chilling. 10 great emperors stood in the void. Some were surrounded by silver thunder and lightning. Some had light wheels of the sun, moon and stars behind their heads. Some were stepping on mountains of corpses and seas of blood, suppressing the purgatory, and some were holding the universe in their hands with divine light in their eyes. The pressure belonging to the Emperor realm gathered together, like a hurricane sweeping recklessly, covering the 9 heavens and 10 earths, oppressing the void outside the city to buzz and wail, and the mountains and rivers tremble. No one dared to approach. Where the 10 great emperors stood, their aura alone could kill practitioners under the Emperor realm. In this oppressive atmosphere, the 10 great emperors spoke one after another. Feng Xian of the Purple Shark clan comes to visit Emperor Lin. Ruwei Chong of the Golden Flood Dragon clan comes to visit Emperor Lin. Gang Wujio of the Thunder Python clan. Flying Serpent clan, majestic voices sounded outside the city and then spread to the whole Forbidden City, shaking the clouds in all directions. It was like bursts of thunder surging over the sky. The practitioners in the city were all shocked and trembling. Sure enough, the kind people didn't come. All eyes turned to the heart-cleansing peak where the Yuanshi Taoist sect was located. Lin Zhong and others looked dignified, and the experts of the Yuanshu Taoist sect also stopped what they were doing. Just in this oppressive atmosphere. Swish! A tall figure rose into the sky, dressed in snow-white clothes, with peerless elegance. It was Lin Sun's platinum Taoist body. He stepped forward and came to the outside of the city in an instant. It's Emperor Lin. Many practitioners noticed this scene, and they couldn't help but be excited, with admiration and fanaticism in their eyes. Outside the city, the 10 great emperors also saw Lin Sun coming out alone. They couldn't help narrowing their eyes slightly, but their bearing was still calm and dignified. "I'm here. What do you want to say?" Lin Sun asked directly. All the emperors were slightly stunned. One of them's eyes flickered, and he said in a deep voice, "We're here to discuss with Emperor Lin about the Thousand Demons War League of the Soul Oblivion Sea entering the myriad Tao Holy City." "There's no room for discussion," Lin Sun interrupted directly. "In this forbidden city, except for my Yuanshu Taoist sect, other forces are not allowed to interfere, otherwise they will be killed." It was straightforward, and there was no room for maneuver. This made the great emperors frown, and their faces became a little ugly. They came prepared this time, and thought that with their strength, it would be enough to make Lin Sun restrain himself. But they never thought that the other party's attitude would be so rude from the beginning. A tall man with golden light flowing all over his body and monstrous power snorted coldly. "Fellow Taoist, you want to occupy the entire myriad Tao Holy Land by yourself? Isn't that too overbearing? We came here with good intentions. We just want to enter the Forbidden City. We have no intention of making things difficult for Emperor Lin. I hope Emperor Lin will reconsider." Emperor Lin, with the recovery of spiritual energy, the great world has arrived. With your strength alone, I'm afraid it's impossible for you to occupy the Forbidden City alone. Why don't you give up some territory? The other emperors spoke up one after another. Their words seemed to be discussing, but in reality, they were faintly discernible threats. Lin Sun stretched out a finger and said indifferently, "I'll say it again. There's no room for discussion. I advise you to disappear now. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite." As soon as these words were spoken, all the cultivators who were paying attention to this scene gasped. Emperor Lin's spirit was indeed domineering and unparalleled. There were 10 great emperors at the gates. If it was anyone else, how would they dare to be so domineering? The faces of the great emperors darkened bit by bit. P.S. Let me inform you in advance. Goldfish currently doesn't have a single chapter in stock. During the new year, she will try her best to write. If she breaks, and she will also make up for it. Chapter 2472. Emperor Lin, is there really no more room for negotiation? A man with snow-white hair and a pair of dark green pupils spoke. Lin Sun's answer was very simple. He said indifferently, "If you don't leave in 3 breaths, then all of you will stay." Arrogant. A woman with long dark green hair was unable to restrain herself any longer, and she berated. "We didn't directly kill our way into the city, and it's already sufficient to give you face, Imperial Monarch Lin. However, you clearly don't take us seriously. Aren't you thinking too highly of yourself?" Lin Sun glanced at her. "So you are a 7th-level emperor. No wonder your temper is worse than that of ordinary emperors." The woman with long dark green hair said coldly, "It's good that you know." There was a hint of arrogance in her expression, but the next moment, she saw Lin Sun lightly spit out a word. "Get lost." The woman with long dark green hair's expression changed as if she had suffered a great humiliation. Her whole aura became violent. She was about to say something. In the distance, Lin Sun waved his sleeve. Boom! The mountains and rivers shook, and the world turned upside down. A dazzling sword chi slashed towards the woman with long dark green hair in the distance. There was a big abyss in the sword chi. "Rise!" The dark green-haired woman reacted at the first possible moment. She withdrew a flower basket that overflowed with multicolored flowing lights. A myriad of strands of divine radiance sprayed out from within the flower basket, and it condensed into a magnificent and vast sea of flowers in midair. It covered the heavens and the earth, and it was beautiful to the point it caused one's heart to tremble. This was a powerful ancient emperor weapon that was mysterious and unfathomable. If one came into contact with those petals, one's essence energy would instantly be completely devoured. As soon as she made her move, she took out her emperor weapon and went all out. It could be seen that this green-haired woman also knew about Lin Sun's battle record and how terrifying he was. Unfortunately, she was still wrong. In the myriad Dao realm, even if their strength was suppressed to the first level of Emperor realm, no one was destined to be Lin Sun's opponent in the same realm. Even if Lin Sun only used his platinum Taoist body. Then boom, as the sword Qi slashed down, the dazzling sea of flowers that blotted out the sky and covered the earth were instantly torn apart by the vast sword Qi. The swaying flower baskets even exploded with a violent wail. The dark green-haired woman was instantly terrified, and her scalp went numb. It was already too late for her to dodge, so she could only stake everything on a single throw to resist desperately. However, before the terrifying sword Qi, she was like an ant trying to shake a tree, and in the blink of an eye, she was drowned by the sword Qi. No! A shrill scream resounded as the green-haired woman's figure turned into ashes. One sword strike, beheading an emperor. It was so fast that the other emperors didn't even have time to save him. How is this possible? They trembled and their pupils constricted. One sword strike had easily killed one of their companions. This was a great shock to them. On the other hand, all the cultivators that noticed this scene were flabbergasted and stunned on the spot. Go! Even though the 9 great emperors had ugly expressions on their faces, they still realized the danger they were in. They didn't dare to hesitate and plan to retreat. Before they came here, they also thought that the 10 of them could form a great power to Lin Sun by joining hands. After all, in the myriad Dao world, everyone's cultivation was suppressed to the first level of the Emperor realm. Even if there was a gap between their combat power, it could be made up by the advantage of numbers. But who would have thought that when they confronted Lin Sun and saw Lin Sun's combat power with their own eyes, they realized that their so-called planning and preparation was a complete joke. Therefore, at this moment, because they didn't dare to stay any longer. But at this moment, Lin Sun's calm voice sounded, 3 breaths have passed. In an instant, the 9 great emperors' faces suddenly changed. Someone shouted subconsciously, Emperor Lin, don't go too far, we puff. Before his voice died away, a sword Qi pierced through his eyebrows, smashed his spirit, and his body disappeared in the air. Go! The others didn't dare to hesitate. They crazily urged their cultivation and ran in different directions as if they were desperate. Go! 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 Lin Sun's sleeves fluttered and his fingers moved continuously. Streaks of dazzling sword Qi broke through the air. For a time, in different directions and different areas, there was a burst of screams. One by one, the great emperors were swept away by Lin Sun's sword Qi and died on the spot. No matter where they fled, no matter how they resisted, they couldn't withstand a single sword strike. In just the blink of an eye, the group of martial monarchs who were running for their lives were killed. Not a single one of them survived. But Lin Sun stood in the same place from beginning to end, calm and relaxed. Boring. After saying these words, Lin Sun turned around and returned to the city. Dressed in white, he was stunning the Forbidden City. After the end of the battle, the news spread all over the world at once, shocking all living beings in the mortal world and setting off a great uproar. In a flash, 10 great emperors were killed. After this disaster, the might of the Thousand Beast Battle League had suffered a destructive blow, and it was very likely that it would collapse. After all, 10 great emperors represented the top existence in the mortal world today. But now they were wiped out in one fell swoop. This kind of damage couldn't be healed by time at all. With this battle, Lin Sun once again proved his invincibility to the world. The prestige of Emperor Lin also reached an unprecedented level and was praised by the world. At the same time, the newly established Yuanshe Taoist sect, although it had not yet formed a great power, became the first orthodoxy of the Forbidden City and even the whole mortal world because of Lin Sun's leadership. Lin Zhong and the others were both happy and worried when they learned this news. They were happy that with Lin Sun's leadership, The rise of Yuan-Shi Taoist sect in the mortal world was destined to be unstoppable. What worried them was that Lin Sun would leave sooner or later, and it was impossible for him to stay here forever. This also meant that before Lin Sun left, Yuan-Shi Taoist sect must improve its strength as soon as possible. Lin Sun saw all of this and did not say anything. Only with pressure would the primeval Tao sect be able to constantly transform. In the current mortal world, other than the Forbidden City, there were many other forces and territories in many other territories. In fact, more than half of the territories were occupied by various demonic beast forces of different sizes. Lin Sun wasn't interested in sweeping through the world. Instead, he decided to leave these potential threats and enemies for Yuan-Shi Taoist sect to deal with. Only in this way could Yuan-Shi Taoist sect truly become an unshakable orthodoxy in battle and tempering. If they blindly protected it, it would be equivalent to harming Yuan-Shi Taoist sect. Whether it was the ancient Desolation Domain or the various worlds on the Starry Sky Ancient Path, every great force would constantly send their disciples to the outside world to train and travel. It was all for the sake of letting these disciples truly grow in battle. Lin Sun hoped that in the future, the Yuan-Shi Taoist sect would be the same. Even without his leadership, it would still be able to resist and resolve all kinds of crises. Forever standing in the world. 1 month later, the origin of all Taos. Ahu, Little Silver, and Little Tian woke up from their meditation one after another and had no choice but to leave this wonderful, chaotic world. After all, they had just set foot in the Emperor realm. It wasn't easy for them to resist the oppressive power of the order and persevere in their meditation for a month. There are many unexplored and unexplored secret realms in the Origin Mother Nest. You can take this opportunity to go and gain experience together. Lin Sun urged them. The Origin Mother Nest was huge. Almost every unexplored secret realm had Origin Tao crystals. On the same day, Ahu and the others left together. Lin Sun continued to stay in the origin of all Taos and meditated on the essence and mystery of various Taos. 2 months, 3 months. This kind of meditation lasted for half a year. The power of order in the origin of all Taos had become extremely terrifying. Even with Lin Sun's strong cultivation, he couldn't bear it. However, Lin Sun didn't leave. He had his own countermeasures. Buzz, the abyssal sword cauldron, appeared. The glittering and translucent phoenix flame of order floated and produced a strange power of order to offset and dissolve the oppression of order in the origin of all Taos. Suddenly, Lin Sun felt relaxed. It works, but with my cultivation, I can only maintain the power of the abyssal sword cauldron for half a month at most. But it's enough. When I really can't hold on, I can leave this place first. When my cultivation recovers, I can enter here to meditate. While thinking, Lin Sun had already begun to meditate. In the past 6 months, he had comprehended the mysteries of 48 new Taos. If the Taos that he had mastered before were added, he had now mastered as many as 79 Taos. Every kind of Taos had been tempered to the Emperor realm by him. They were condensed and pure, and all reflected the essence and original aura of Taos. Now, although Lin Sun's cultivation had not undergone a substantial transformation, the number of Taos he had mastered was constantly increasing, which was bound to be of great benefit to his future Taos. This was like accumulating power and cultivation. Sooner or later, there would be an amazing transformation like a golden carp turning into a dragon or a butterfly breaking out of cocoon. For a period of time, when Lin Sun's cultivation couldn't support, he would leave the origin of Myriad Tao. When his cultivation recovered, he would enter the origin of Myriad Tao again to continue meditating. Iso probably didn't expect that Lin Sun could meditate in the origin of Myriad Tao for a long time with the Order Phoenix Flame of the Abyssal Sword Cauldron. Unknowingly, 3 years had passed since Lin Sun meditated in the origin of Myriad Tao. In the outside world, it had been 3 years since the establishment of the Yuan-Shi Taoist sect. 3 years. Under the background of the crazy growth of spiritual energy and drastic changes in the world, every place and every territory in the mortal world was undergoing earth-shaking changes. The most obvious example was that in the past 3 years, there would be news of Emperor Realm coming out every once in a while, which caused a lot of uproar in the world. At the same time, a batch of extremely dazzling figures emerged in the world. Each of them made triumphant progress on the road of Tao, showing a peerless style far beyond the ordinary. Even ordinary cultivators were able to achieve continuous breakthroughs in this world where spiritual qi had been restored. P.S. Today is New Year's Eve. I wish everyone a happy New Year. Well, I will make up for what I owe after the New Year. Chapter 2473. In the past 3 years, the Yuanshi Dao sect held 3 assessment ceremonies to recruit disciples. Every time, it attracted the attention of the world and was known as the first event in the myriad Dao realm. Every single year, countless young and handsome geniuses with extraordinary talent would emerge from the test ceremony. Especially those that were ranked in the top 10 of the test ceremony, they were renowned throughout the world, and everyone knew of them. In the past 3 years, the foundation of the Yuanshi Dao sect had become stronger and stronger. Every move of the sect affected the world. In this regard, many people sighed with emotion. All the talents in the world returned to the Yuanshi. At the same time, in the past 3 years, the ancient Desolation realm had sent many forces to try to re-enter the myriad Dao realm. But without exception, they were all defeated by Lin Sun's doppelganger. Even if it was led by an Emperor Realm expert, it seemed vulnerable. On this day, Forbidden City, outside the heart-cleansing peak, I beg of you, let me go pay my respects to Imperial Monarch Lin. A travel-worn, green-clothed woman with a fatigued expression pleaded, "Miss, how many times have I told you that in the myriad Dao realm, there are countless big shots queuing up to see my sect's ancestor every day, but without exception, they have no chance to see him. It's not that I don't want to report it, but the ancestor said 3 years ago that he doesn't want to see any guests." A successor of the Yuanshi Dao sect persuaded in a warm voice, "Miss, I can see that you are anxious, but please don't make it difficult for me. Leave quickly." The woman's expression changed, and she said bitterly, "I fled all the way from the ancient Desolation realm and finally arrived here. If I can't see Emperor Lin this time, I'd rather die." With that, she drew her sword and slashed at her neck. Clang! In a sound of collision, the long sword was knocked away. The successor of the Yuanshi Dao sect shouted sternly, "Miss, what are you doing?" The woman's eyes were in a trance, and she said as if she had lost her soul, "What am I doing? I just want to see Emperor Lin and tell him that his disciple is in great trouble now." Is he going to let her die, disciple? The successors of the Yuanshi Dao sect who guarded the mountain gate nearby were all stunned. They had never heard of their sect's master taking in a disciple. Plop! At this moment, the green-clothed woman seemed to be exhausted and fainted on the ground. One of them stepped forward to investigate and couldn't help but gasp. "This lady's internal injuries are so severe that she's on the verge of death. I really don't know. How did she manage to hold on until now? What should we do?" The other successors of the primeval Dao sect looked at each other. This was the first time they had encountered such a thing. "Let's treat her injuries first. We'll send her away when she wakes up," someone decided. "Senior brother, but her injuries are too severe. With our abilities, I'm afraid it's utterly impossible for us to wake her up." Everyone's brows knit together tightly, and they seemed to be in a very difficult position. What happened? Right at this moment, a voice rang out. A handsome man in jade robes walked out from the mountain gate. It was precisely Shiryu. "Greetings, elder." The successors of the primordial Dao sect bowed one after another. One of them told them about the green-clothed woman. When he learned the purpose of the cyan-clothed woman's visit, Shiryu couldn't help but be stunned. He also didn't know when Lin Sun had accepted a disciple. Such heavy injuries. Shiryu stepped forward to investigate, and couldn't help but reveal a serious expression. Without hesitation, he carefully lifted the green-clothed woman and turned around to enter the mountain gate. The top of heart-cleansing peak. Lin Sun's with Taoist body was growing. Silent cultivation. When Shiryu brought the azure-clothed woman to find him, he immediately noticed them. Brother Lin, this lady said that she came because of your disciple, but her injuries are too severe. Shiryu told him what had happened. Lin Sun was stunned at first, and then he suddenly thought of someone, Su Bai. Back then, by the shore of the Star-Chest Sea in the ancient Desolation Realm, the unnamed disciple he had taken in was a young man in straw sandals who was born with a sword bone, just like Yun Qing Bai. Leave it to me. Lin Sun got up and looked the woman up and down. He couldn't help being moved. His injuries were too severe. Her internal organs, meridians, apertures, and even her Tao foundation and soul had suffered severe injuries. Because she wasn't treated in time, strands of the aura of death coiled around her body. Under such circumstances, she, a woman, had managed to find her way from the ancient Desolation Realm to this place. It was a miracle. If it was anyone else, they probably wouldn't be able to save this green-clothed woman's life. But it was not difficult for Lin Sun. As he pondered, he'd already stretched out a finger and pressed it onto the space between the woman's brows. A strand of copious and irresistible vitality transformed into a gurgling warm stream that was like the spring breeze and rain that permeated the woman's limbs and bones half a quarter later. Lin Sun withdrew his finger, took out a precious divine medicine, refined it into drops of medicine juice, and poured it into the woman's body. 30 minutes later, seeing that the woman's withering vitality recovered little by little, and her whole body glowed with vitality visible to the naked eye, Lin Sun relaxed a lot. It was no exaggeration to say that if she hadn't met him, this woman would not have lived past today. Shiryu, who had been standing on one side, also breathed a sigh of relief and said, Brother Lin, this girl came to ask for help for your disciple regardless of her injuries. You can't just stand by. Lin Sun nodded and said in his heart, It seems that it's time to go to the ancient Desolation Realm. When Gushi woke up, he only felt warm all over as if he was soaking in warm spring water. Every inch of his body was full of vitality. The vigorous spiritual power circulated in his body like a great river. There was no pain or fatigue in his soul, but it was extremely clear. Gushi opened his eyes and saw that he was in a simple and elegant room. Outside the open window, there were auspicious clouds, red-crowned cranes flying, and divine lights falling. Far away, there were bursts of pine rustling, like the sound of nature. Even the breath in the mouth and nose was full of divine aura, which made people feel relaxed and happy. Am I dreaming? Gushi was confused. In the past 2 months, she had been wounded and kept fleeing. She had gone through a narrow escape and survived by sheer willpower. In fact, even she didn't expect that she could be so desperate for the man she loved and admired most. Life and death, pain and hardships seemed to be no longer important. How do you feel? A gentle voice rang out, carrying with it a soothing power. Gushi suddenly sat up from the bed and turned her head to look. She saw a tall man with an extraordinary bearing sitting in front of the desk on one side and looking at her with a smile. Gushi suddenly understood that she was saved. Thank you for saving my life, my friend. She struggled to get up. Lin Sun waved his hand, and Gushi was suddenly pressed down by a soft force and lay back on the bed. I reconstructed your meridians and acupoints before. It's not suitable for strenuous movements now, since your Taoist root is about to collapse. Gushi sensed for a moment, and sure enough, she noticed that not only had her injuries healed, even her cultivation had obtained a completely new tempering. This caused her to be unable to help but be shocked, and she didn't dare imagine that such an unbelievable technique existed in this world. One had to know that she was already prepared to have her cultivation crippled and become immortal. May I ask who you are? Gushi couldn't help asking. Lin Sun. Lin Sun said casually, I'm Su Bai's master. It's really you. Gushi's eyes lit up, and she looked excited. Senior, child Su Bai is in danger. I hope you can save him. Lin Sun asked, what's wrong with him? Gushi took a deep breath and explained the ins and outs of the matter one by one. It turned out that in the years when Lin Sun accepted Su Bai as a disciple, Su Bai had become a genius of the young generation in the ancient desolation domain. He became the first person in the lower 5 realms of the ancient desolation domain, the first in the longevity king realm, and the first in the saint realm. Until 10 years ago, he set foot in the realm of quasi-emperor as a saint king in one fell swoop. His cultivation speed was fast, his combat power was tyrannical, and his foundation was strong. In the ancient desolation domain, he was like a big sun, shining brightly. But not long ago, Su Bai went to the Great Wall of the Imperial Pass to practice. In a fierce battle, he was unfortunately ambushed. So far, his life and death were unknown, and there was no news. Child Su Bai's temperament is firm and unsociable. Although he has been famous all over the world over the years, he has offended many big forces. Most of them looked on indifferently and even gloated when they heard the news of his misfortune. Gushi said, "In desperation, I heard the news that you appeared in the Myriad Tao realm, so I came to ask for your help with a glimmer of hope." After listening, Lin Sun said, "So, after Su Bai suffered in the Great Wall of the Imperial Pass, it is still uncertain whether he is alive or dead?" Gushi nodded. Lin Sun thought for a while and said, "What about you? How did you suffer such a serious injury before?" Gushi's expression changed. After a long while, he said bitterly, "It's my fault. When I heard the news of child Su Bai's misfortune, I was so anxious that I went to some big forces to ask for help. I inadvertently revealed the identity of child Su Bai's master, so that those big forces saw me as a thorn in their side. Especially when they learned that I was coming to the Myriad Tao realm to ask for your help. Those big forces obstructed me in every way and sent many forces to chase me all the way." Lin Sun's black eyes surged with a trace of cold light. "It turns out that just because of the relationship between Su Bai and me, you have been persecuted by them." Gushi shook his head quickly. "It's not your fault. I was too careless and stupid at that time. I didn't expect that those big forces would hate you so much." Lin Sun waved his hand and said, "Miss, you don't need to explain. I'm going to the ancient desolation realm. Whether it's to save Su Bai or to avenge you, it's time to make a thorough end to the past grievances." After a pause, Lin Sun said softly, "Miss, take a rest for the time being. 3 days later, I'll take you to the ancient desolation realm." After that, Lin Sun turned and left. Gushi lay on the bed alone, in a daze, with all kinds of feelings welling up in her heart. After a long time, she murmured in her heart, "Brother Su Bai, I saw your most respected master. He promised to save you. You must be well. P.S. On the first day of the new year, in order to update, goldfish can only stay at home and write. Well, the second day is a little late." Chapter 2474. 3 days later. Lin's Scarlet Fire Taoist body and Blackwater Taoist body left the Yuan Shi Taoist sect quietly with Gushi, who had completely recovered. Greenwood Taoist body, Platinum Taoist body, and Yellow Taoist body stayed on heart-cleansing peak. In the years of spiritual chi recovery, there were many tunnels from the ancient desolation realm to the mortal world, but in the past 3 years, almost all of them had been destroyed by Lin. However, it was not difficult for Lin Sun to travel across the void to the ancient desolation realm. 1 day later, ancient desolation realm, Cloud Mountain Range. Lin's Scarlet Fire Taoist body and Blackwater Taoist body appeared one after another. Almost immediately, Lin noticed that the ancient desolation realm had changed. The spiritual chi between heaven and earth was more than 10 times denser than before. It seems that the news is true. The spiritual chi recovery has not only affected the mortal world, but also the ancient desolation realm. However, it seems that although the ancient desolation realm also has spiritual chi recovery, it is far from comparable with the core of the origin of all Tao in the mortal world. No wonder the orthodoxies of the ancient desolation realm have gone to the mortal world to compete for territory. In the future, the ancient desolation realm is destined to be inferior to the mortal world. In Lin's view, The ultimate form of the mortal world and the spiritual chi recovery must be a divine land comparable to the central earth Tao estate in the primordial world. As for the ancient desolation realm, it would become a foil to the mortal world. I'll go to the Dark Parasol Mountain to find the sole root of the Dark Parasol divine tree. Before long, Scarlet Fire Taoist body immediately set off to the original territory of the West Hung realm. As early as when he returned to the mortal world, Lin had already learned from Wuju Bell that the sole root of the Dark Parasol divine tree was very likely to be the psychic king medicine he had seen before. The reason why Lin sent two doppelgangers to act together this time was to rescue his disciple Su Bai and find the Dark Parasol divine tree. As long as he gathered this divine material, he could condense a chaotic divine tree sapling. Until Scarlet Fire Taoist body went far away, Blackwater Taoist body released Gu Shi from the treasure. Then, the two rushed to the Great Wall of the Imperial Pass together. Whoosh! Lin Sun displayed the space shift. His whole body was like a stream of flowing light. Every time he flashed, it was comparable to the Big Dipper. Thousands of mountains and rivers were left behind. Along the way, Lin Sun clearly felt that although the recovery of spiritual chi in the ancient desolation was not as good as that in the mortal world, the power it could contain was much stronger than that in the mortal world. His cultivation of the 5th level of the Emperor realm was suppressed to the peak of the 3rd level. Only, I wonder if those elders from back then are still at Imperial Pass Great Wall. While hurrying, Lin Sun also recalled the first time he headed to Imperial Pass Great Wall. At that time, it was Divine Secret Pavilion's elder Een who brought him through the endless void path, and only then did they barely reach Imperial Pass Great Wall. There, Lin got to know many old monsters, such as Shun Ji, Lady Mu, Ling Xiaozi, and so on. Thinking of the past, Lin Sun sighed with emotion in his eyes. At that time, he was only at the True Saint stage and was regarded as a junior by the Boundary Emperors. But now, he was already a peerless great emperor. Things had changed with the passage of time, and things were no longer the same as before. 2 days later, in an extremely distant place, a black line extended continuously, stretching between heaven and earth, boundless and endless, too massive, great to the point where one couldn't see its height or distance. However, upon closer inspection, one could tell that this was a great wall winding between heaven and earth. It was incomparably vast, incomparably majestic, covering heaven and earth. Just looking at it from the distance made one feel insignificant. It was because this city was too vast. In that city's surroundings, there were stars moving about one after another, as if they were eternal. It had always been like this since time began. Grand, magnificent, majestic. Even the stars could only move around the city's surroundings. Just how massive was this? This was Yang Pass, one of Imperial Pass' many cities. Back then, when Lin Sun came here for the first time, he was already shocked by this scene. Now that he came here again, he still couldn't help but feel great waves stirring inside. This city was built by a group of great emperors in the archaic era by gathering stars from outer space. It stretched between heaven and earth like an eternal wall, blocking outside enemies. Meanwhile, there were too many giant cities like this in Imperial Pass Great Wall. It wasn't exaggeration to say that Imperial Pass Great Wall was known as the ancient wasteland's #1 heavenly moat, the place where great emperors stopped. This definitely wasn't empty words. Moreover, Lin Sun had long understood that the main battlefield of the archaic 10-directional Dao battles was precisely near Imperial Pass Great Wall. At that time, for the sake of resisting the nameless emperor's taboo order power, it was unknown just how many great emperor figures shed their heads here, their blood spilled, writing an incomparable legend forged through blood and flames. Meanwhile, after the 10-directional Dao battles ended, Imperial Pass Great Wall became ancient wasteland region's sturdiest line of defense. After endless years, it had always been here, resisting the 8 region's foreign enemies. Who was it that came? Suddenly, an explosive shout sounded from the towering Yang Pass Great Wall gates. Immediately afterwards, a figure dressed in green armor, beard and hair scraggly, face resolute, entire body releasing an iron blood-like, terrifying aura rushed out. In his surroundings, great Tao light poured down like a waterfall, murderous energy disturbing the wind and clouds. One could tell with a single look that this was a powerful figure who had long experienced the battlefield. When he saw the other party, Lin Sun couldn't help but stare blankly, saying with a smile, "Senior Shunji, long time no see." The other party was precisely Shunji. When Lin Sun first came to Imperial Pass Great Wall, he was also questioned by Shunji, who guarded the city gate. Shunji's eyes froze for a moment, and then he immediately shouted, "It turns out to be you. Why did you come back again?" With a smile on his face, he stepped forward and gave Lin Sun a warm hug. "I came to save people," Lin Sun said. He could tell at a glance that after many years, Shunji had already stepped into the Emperor realm, but obviously he had just broken through not long ago, only at the first level of the Emperor realm. Save people? Shunji was stunned. "Who?" "Subai," Lin Sun said. Shunji came to a sudden realization. So it was that young man. That child is truly a peerless genius. His cultivation is not inferior to yours back then. After arriving at Yang Pass, he has indeed made quite a number of glorious achievements and is greatly welcomed. But, speaking of this, he showed a sad expression, and his voice became low. But not long ago, when he was killing the enemy outside the city, he was suddenly ambushed, so his whereabouts are unknown, and he hasn't come back yet. At that time, many old monsters in the city personally went to rescue him, but the battlefield was too chaotic and turbulent. We searched for a long time, but we didn't find any trace of him. Alas, you don't know, because of his disappearance, we all feel quite guilty in our hearts. Shunji let out a long sigh. After all, it's too rare to see a talent like him in this world. In the end, Shunji suddenly remembered something and said, "By the way, who is he to you?" "A registered disciple I accepted a long time ago," Lin Sun said. Shunji was stunned, and his eyes were complicated. "I see, but I'm afraid you will be disappointed this time. Today, outside Imperial Pass, the enemies of the 8 regions are aggressive, and there are fierce and cruel bloody battles breaking out every day. It's too difficult to find a person whose whereabouts are unknown." Lin Sun was silent for a while, and then said, "Senior, do you think Subai is no longer in the world?" Shunji shook his head. "We have searched the battlefield and found no trace of this boy's death. Many people suspect that this boy is very likely to be captured alive." "Captured alive?" Lin Sun's black eyes were deep. "Who ambushed him at that time?" Shunji said, "A group of quasi-emperors of the Great Luo ancient domain, and there is suspected to be the breath of an emperor realm." The Great Luo ancient domain. Lin Sun's eyes were deep. The Great Luo ancient domain was a world of sword cultivators. When he was in the 9-region battlefield, he had fought with Jin Qingshun, the successor of the Sky Sword Pavilion of the Great Luo ancient domain and one of the 8 masters of Green Darkness. If it was really the Great Luo ancient domain who captured Subai alive, was it because of his talent in sword bone? This was really possible. "Shun, hurry up. The battle is about to break out." Suddenly, a urging voice came from Yang Pass. Shunji was stunned, and then immediately showed a ruthless look. F*CK. It's only been less than 3 days, and those aliens are here again? They're really haunting me. He looked at Lin Sun. "My little friend, why don't you take a rest in Yang Pass first? When I come back from killing the enemies, I'll catch up with you." "I'll go with you," Lin Sun said. "You? I'm afraid you still don't know. But the Great Wall of Imperial Pass today is different from before. With the recovery of spiritual energy, the enemies of the 8 regions have launched many full-scale attacks in recent decades, and many emperors have appeared." Shunji was a little hesitant, but halfway through his words, he was stunned because on Lin Sun's body there was quietly an aura belonging to the Emperor realm. "Qualified enough?" Lin Sun asked with a smile. "Yes, that's enough." Shunji's eyes lit up, and he exclaimed, "I don't know how many years I've been stationed here, fighting, and finally seized the opportunity to become an emperor more than 10 years ago. How many years have I not seen you? And you're already in Emperor Realm existence. Let's go. There's no time to lose. I'll take you to see how spectacular the bloody battle on the Great Wall of Imperial Pass is. As he spoke, he already turned around, rushing into Rising Sun Pass. Lin Sun thought for a bit, and then put Gushi back into the treasure. The latter's cultivation was only in the Saint Realm. Once he was affected, he might suffer a disaster. Then, he followed Shunji and flew away. Inside Rising Sun Pass, the atmosphere was oppressive and austere. In the city that was as vast as a world, many figures were moving about, all of them heading towards the same place. These figures all gave off an iron-blooded, murderous aura. They had been on the battlefield for a long time, the weakest of them at the Quasi-Emperor realm. And the ones in the lead were two emperors, just that their faces were unfamiliar. Lin Sun had never seen them before. After Shunji's introduction, Lin Sun learned that of the two emperors, one was Battle Emperor of Cumulus Clouds, second-level Emperor Realm. The other was Battle Emperor Chinchua, first-level Emperor Realm. They were both like Shunji, elders who had been stationed on the Great Wall of Imperial Pass for many years, also becoming emperors in the recent decades. And when Lin Sun asked about familiar elders like Madame Mu, Ling Xiaozi, and others, Shunji revealed a look of disappointment and melancholy, his eyes even turning red. After a long time, he shook his head and sighed that they all left a step ahead of me. P.S. Almost forgot an important matter. The time to grab the New Year's red packet is here again. Open it and add your followers. Tomorrow at 8 o'clock, Goldfish will send a very big New Year's red packet on the public account. Chapter 2475. Lin Sun felt an inexplicable sense of loss. Those old friends had passed away a long time ago. He didn't feel sad, but he felt uncomfortable. Let's go. Shunji had already rushed over. Outside Yangpass, this was a vast world that was withered, shattered, and desolate. In the countless years of the past, countless experts had fought here, and only a few were able to survive. Most of them had been buried here and turned into a pile of yellow soil. Whoosh, the world was dark, and the murderous aura covered the sky like thick, dark clouds. Bursts of horns came from afar, adding to the murderous aura. When looked at from afar, the figures that were like tidewater were like a black line that spread out from extremely far away in the heavens and the earth, and they formed a dense mass that numbered in the tens of thousands and were innumerable. It was an army of cultivators. The murderous aura from each of them gathered together and turned into monstrous black clouds that covered the sky. The world changed color, and the wind and thunder surged. In this vast and austere battlefield, death was like an eternal and unchanging preface, and it was marked by slaughter and blood. So many. The overlord stationed at the front line of the ancient desolation realm all looked solemn. This time, the enemy's lineup was far more powerful than before. It was as if they had come out in full force, which was chilling. How many? Battle Emperor Song Yun asked in a deep voice. He was the ruler of Yang Pass, like the lord of this place, a commander-in-chief. 6. Battle Emperor Qianqua's eyes glowed with obscure light. She gave the answer after a brief glance. 6 Emperor Realm? Shunji let out a strange cry. What is the great Luo ancient realm trying to do? Break through Yang Pass in one go? Everyone looked solemn and gloomy, and no one said a word. Everyone knew that the enemy's attack this time was not ordinary. It was very likely that they would go all out to determine the outcome. After a while, Martial Emperor Songyun gritted his teeth and ordered in a deep voice, send out a request for help. Tell them that Yang Pass is in danger. We will fight with our lives, but we can only hold on for as long as we can. No matter what, we must hold on for Yang Pass, even if we all die in battle. His voice was like a clap of thunder, resounding through the heavens and earth. On the other side of the Sun Pass, there were no more than 1,000 experts from the ancient desolation realm, and many of them were obviously injured. But at this moment, no one retreated. Every single one of them revealed a resolute, composed, and calm expression. F*CK. Shun-Ji gritted his teeth and roared. F***CK. Above Yang Pass, everyone roared, their voices shaking the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Regardless of whether it was the elders who had been stationed here for many years or the experts who had only recently joined, from the very start, they knew that on Imperial Pass Great Wall, life and death could happen at any time. Perhaps it was because they were prepared that they appeared so calm and composed. He regarded death as a return home. Woo 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 in the distance. The sound of the horn was getting closer and closer. The figures of the enemies were like a flood that covered the earth, sweeping over. The ones in the lead were all martial emperors with terrifying auras. Every single one of them unleashed a supreme martial emperor might that caused the heavens and earth to change color. At this moment, Lin Sun suddenly said, "Not 6, but 9. Battle Emperor Qinshue, Battle Emperor Qinshue," and Shun-Ji's pupils contracted upon hearing this. Their hearts became heavier and heavier. 9 martial emperors arrived together. How could they fight this battle? F***CK. F***CK. Martial Emperor Qinshue's eyes turned red as he roared. F***CK. The others also roared. Imperial Pass Great Wall was the strongest defense line of the ancient Desolation region. Once it was breached, the enemies of the 8 regions would definitely march straight in. At that time, the entire ancient Desolation region would fall into chaos. Little friend, what are you going to do? Come back. Suddenly, Shun-Ji's expression changed. He found that Lin Sun had left the defense line of Yang Pass in advance, heading toward the battlefield in the distance. This made Shun-Ji's heart skip a beat. I'm going to ask them where my disciple is now. Lin Sun's indifferent voice sounded. He didn't even look back. Alone, with his hands behind his back, he had already arrived at the vast, desolate, and bloody battlefield. Nonsense! Battle Emperor Qinshue's face was livid. Shun-Ji, who is this kid? Why does he dare to disobey orders and act on his own? If he is in danger, tell me, should I save him or not? If I save him, how should I save him? His hair and beard fluttered in anger. It was obvious that he was truly enraged. Shun-Ji's expression was uncertain. He clenched his teeth and said, "This is Lin Sun. He is already an emperor now. I believe he must have some confidence since he dares to do this." Emperor. Many people were shocked. He is indeed an emperor. Battle Emperor Qinshue looked carefully and nodded. Previously, Lin Sun's aura was extremely restrained. Even Shun-Ji, who had just met Lin Sun, almost didn't recognize him, let alone Battle Emperor Qinshue and the others. Battle Emperor Qinshue's expression eased a lot, but he was still angry. How can an emperor not recognize the situation? He will be in danger. The real battle hasn't started yet. There is still a chance to turn things around. Shun-Ji, tell him to come back. Shun-Ji nodded hurriedly, but when he looked up, Lin Sun had already gone far into the depths of the battlefield. He was all alone, standing in front of the mighty army that was charging towards him. All of a sudden, let alone Shun-Ji, even Battle Emperor Qinshue and the other powerhouses stationed at the front line of Yang Pass felt nervous. They were both anxious and angry. What was he trying to do now? He was walking right into a trap. At the same time, the mighty army of the great Luo ancient domain was also restless. They were extremely surprised, as if they didn't expect that Yang Pass would send someone here. Was he trying to die? The leader of the emperors with a terrifying aura waved his hand, and the army behind him suddenly stopped. At the same time, the eyes of these emperors all locked on Lin Sun, with surprise, playfulness, disdain, and grim smiles on their faces. Yang Pass knows that they are no match for us, so they sent a little thing like you to die? A dignified, thin old man on an ancient sword spoke, his eyes cold and full of disdain. I'll give you a chance. Go back and tell those 2-legged sheep at Yang Pass to surrender and give up resisting. Otherwise, when we break through Yang Pass, it'll be the day of your death. A tall and mighty man in a purple robe shouted, his thunderous voice shaking the universe. Lin Sun glanced at the powerhouses of the great Luo ancient domain and said indifferently, "Who knows where Su Bai is now? Answer me." and you can be spared." His words were casual, but they clearly resounded in the ears of every enemy. The enemies couldn't help but be astonished by this. This guy was just one person, but he dared to threaten them in front of the army? He was simply insane. "Subai." The thin old man on the ancient sword frowned. "You mean the young man with the sword bone? He is indeed a rare seedling, but unfortunately, I'm afraid you won't be able to see him again in this life. It seems that you know my disciple. Not bad. You can live a little longer." Lin Sun looked at the thin old man. "You're courting death. Let's kill him first," the tall and mighty man in a purple robe said. He picked up a golden halberd and moved through the void to kill. With a sweep of his hand, golden light swept out, and the void of thousands of feet burst and collapsed. Oh no! In front of Yang Pass, Battle Emperor Clump Cloud, Battle Emperor Qian Shui, Shun Ji, and the others all changed their expressions. They recognized that the person who attacked was a ruthless emperor from the great Luo ancient domain. He was at the second level of the Emperor realm, and he had shown extremely powerful combat power in the previous battles. On the Yang Pass side, many powerhouses were killed by this person. At this time, seeing this person attack Lin Sun, how could they not be worried? But Lin Sun seemed to be unaware of it. He only stretched out a hand and grabbed lightly. Bang! The golden halberd that was slashing towards him was instantly caught in his hand. It was as if he was pinching a fly. Then, he exerted force with his wrist. Boom! The golden halberd exploded and turned into a golden rain of light that scattered all over the sky. Under the recoil, the mighty man staggered and almost fell from the void. His expression suddenly changed. But at the same time, as Lin Sun waved his sleeve, boundless light swept out like a landslide and a tsunami, crushing the universe and illuminating the mountains and rivers. In an instant, the body of the mighty man at the second level of the Emperor realm was shattered into countless pieces and turned into ashes. With a wave of his sleeve, an emperor was killed. Such a bloody scene immediately shocked everyone present. The overbearing powerhouses of the great Luo ancient domain were all dumbfounded, as if they couldn't believe their eyes. On the side of the ancient desolation realm, Shunji, the clustered cloud battle emperor, and the others were dumbfounded as well. They gasped as if they had seen a ghost. Just now, they were still worried that Lin Sun would be in trouble. But in the blink of an eye, he killed a great emperor so easily. This was undoubtedly too inconceivable. Such trash dares to be so arrogant. His death is not to be regretted. Lin Sun flicked his fingers, and his eyes were filled with coldness. Looks like there's no need to delay any longer. Let's attack together. Kill. At this moment, all the emperors of the great Luo ancient domain didn't dare to hesitate any longer. They attacked with all their might, drew out their emperor weapons, executed Dao techniques, and revealed monstrous emperor Dao techniques. But it was not enough for Lin Sun. He stepped in the void and flicked his fingers, and rays of dazzling sword chi shot out. Every ray of sword chi was branded with unfathomable profundities, and they were peerlessly fierce and domineering. When they flashed out together, the sword chi simply seemed to be able to pierce through the heavens and the earth, tear the world apart, and slay everything. Puff! Immediately, an emperor was cleaved in half. His corpse was completely vaporized by the boundless sword chi. Both his body and soul were destroyed. Puff! Puff! In the following time, one emperor realm after another was killed. What emperor weapons, what Dao techniques, were all crushed by the brilliant sword chi. Any resistance was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. In just a few blinks of an eye, the 9 emperors who led the army were all killed by Lin Sun on the spot, except for the thin old man. Too fast, too violent, and terrifying. In front of Lin Sun, those emperors were like duckweed, and they were easily killed. Originally, the clustered cloud battle emperor, Shunji, and the others were ready to rescue Lin Sun if he was really besieged. But who would have thought that Lin Sun didn't give him a chance at all? Under Lin Sun's hands, there was a bloody scene of slaughtering great emperors. Chapter 2476. As Emperor Realm figures, Shunji and the others had experienced the ups and downs of the world and had seen many killings and bloodshed. But they had never seen the scene of the slaying emperor slaughtering chickens and monkeys. In just a few blinks of an eye, the power Lin Sun showed almost subverted their cognition. They were all stunned, and their hearts were shocked to the extreme. As for the other experts at the front line of Yangguan, they all stared with their eyes and mouths wide open. How could this be described with the word strong? On the battlefield in the distance, the skinny old man was shivering all over, cold sweat oozing out like glue, and his soul almost flew out of his body. He was completely frightened. Even if he racked his brains, he would never have imagined that his companions would fall so quickly. They were all great emperors, but in the hands of that young man, they were so weak. Dong! Before the skinny old man could react, he was knocked unconscious. Then, Lin Sun's figure flashed in the void. Crash! 3,000 doppelgangers whizzed out, covering the sky and the sun. Each of them had a cultivation above the quasi-emperor realm, second only to the emperor realm. This was the innate magical power of the Blackwater physique, 3,000 weak water. The power possessed by each doppelganger was only one realm lower than the Blackwater physique. For example, Lin Sun's original body and the 5 Taoist bodies had the cultivation of the 5th level of the Emperor realm, but the combat power possessed by the 3,000 doppelgangers of the Blackwater physique could only be above the level of Quasi-Emperor at most. Of course, it was above the level of Quasi-Emperor. The army of the great Luo ancient domain in the distance was still in a state of shock and had not recovered from the death of those emperors. When they saw the scene of Lin Sun's 3,000 doppelgangers appearing at the same time, they felt like they were about to collapse. Unfortunately, this slaughter was destined to not delay them at all. Boom! In the void, the 3,000 doppelgangers moved together, just like Lin Sun, who was at the peak of the quasi-emperor realm, attacked together. It was a terrifying and boundless army. For a time, the battlefield was filled with killing and blood, and countless screams, and wails sounded one after another. Just at the beginning of the slaughter, the tens of thousands of soldiers of the great Luo ancient domain directly collapsed, and countless people screamed in horror and fled in panic. God, is Senior Lin Sun still human? Too strong. One person suppressing the enemies of an entire region. Countless cries rang out from the front lines at Yangguan. Shock was written all over the faces of every expert, and they were so excited that their bodies trembled. What are you waiting for? Kill your way out. The Clump Cloud Battle Monarch roared. She was extremely excited and her eyes were shining. The anxiety and heaviness in her heart had been swept away. He immediately rushed over. Kill! Battle Empress Qinxue and Shunji followed closely behind. When a tree falls, the monkeys scatter. A defeated army is like a collapsing mountain. After Lin Sun killed those emperors, it was already destined that the great Luo ancient domain would no longer have a chance to turn the situation around. When Lin Sun displayed his talent, it undoubtedly accelerated the defeat and death of the enemy. Therefore, when the army of the ancient Desolation realm, led by the Confluence Cloud Battle Emperor, arrived at the battlefield, the battle had already come to an end. Those who were killed by them were merely fish that had escaped the net. After a quarter of an hour, the vast battlefield was suffused with the stench of blood, and no traces of enemies could be seen. The Confluence Cloud Battle Monarch and the others were filled with excitement and fighting spirit, but they still felt a little disappointed. Until the end of the battle, Lin Sun. Before, who would have thought that this young man who acted alone could have such incredible and terrifying combat power? It was like a god descending to the world, sweeping away all enemies. At this time, when they looked at Lin Sun again, everyone's eyes had become different. There was more shock, awe, and respect from the bottom of their hearts. In this imperial pass, no one knew how many legendary giants had emerged from ancient times to the present, and each of them had a magnificent record. And after today's battle, it also made people realize that this young man in front of them was enough to be recorded in the annals of history. Previously, I was blind and underestimated your abilities. I hope you can forgive me. The Confluence Cloud Battle Emperor cupped his hands and bowed, showing a look of shame. Lin Sun smiled and helped him up. Ignorance is not a crime. What's more, this action was my own initiative. I made you all worried. Ha ha ha, don't be modest. This time, you saved the entire Yang Pass with your own strength. Shunji walked over with a laugh. Let's go back to Yang Pass and have a good chat. This time, no matter what, we must entertain you well to express our gratitude. Battle Emperor Qinshue smiled. The others also showed a look of anticipation. If they could drink and chat with such a legendary figure, it would be enough to be regarded as a strong and colorful stroke in their own cultivation career. But Lin Sun shook his head. Everyone, wait for me to find my disciple. Then I'll drink with you all. Everyone was stunned. Little friend, Subai. Shunji couldn't help but say, he should be fine, but I may have to go to the great Luo ancient domain. Lin Sun said, and released the thin old man who had been captured. Don't worry, with the old thing here, I believe that my disciple can be found. Shunji and others dissuaded him, because the great Luo ancient domain, after all, was the enemy's territory, and they were afraid that there would be many risks if they went there rashly. But Lin Sun had made up his mind and finally left. What great Luo ancient domain? With his current combat power, even if his cultivation was suppressed, even if he encountered the Emperor Ancestor, who controlled the power of one path, he could still escape. Watching Lin Sun's figure leave and disappear in the distance of the battlefield, Shunji and others all looked complicated, not knowing whether they should be happy or worried. This battle was a complete victory, and it should have been a celebration. But Lin Sun went to the great Luo ancient domain alone, which made them worry. Let's go back. Shunji took the lead to speak. You have already seen the strength of Lin Sun's combat power. Since he dares to do this, he must have something to rely on. What's more, even if we are worried, we can't help much. Everyone nodded. Let's go back and tell me about this little friend Lin Sun. In the past, I only knew that there was an extraordinary person in the ancient desolation domain, but I never thought that after so many years, the young man back then has already become a great emperor with great means. Combust Cloud Battle Emperor said. The others also showed curiosity. Battle Emperor Qinshue suddenly thought of something, slapped her forehead, and shouted, by the way, quickly issue an order to withdraw the previous request for help, and also tell the old buddies on the other strongholds of the Great Wall of Imperial Pass that in the future, no enemy will dare to invade this Yang Pass. So, he was captured and brought to the Sky Sword Pavilion. On the way, Lin Sun killed the thin old man, searched his spirit, and soon learned what he wanted to know. It turned out that not long ago, Subai, who had performed extremely dazzlingly on the battlefield of the Great Wall of Imperial Pass, had long been targeted by the Great Luo ancient domain. Thus, in a battle, these experts of the Great Luo ancient domain carefully prepared an ambush, and in order to capture Subai alive, they even sent a Sword Emperor. This Sword Emperor was the thin old man who was killed by Lin Sun at this moment. In the memory of his soul, after Subai was captured, he was immediately sent to the Sky Sword Pavilion of the Great Luo ancient domain. The purpose of Sky Sword Pavilion capturing Subai alive was very simple. It was for the power of his sword bone. It was not to seize his talent, but to erase Subai's memory with a secret method, so that he would be completely loyal to Sky Sword Pavilion. According to the speculation of Sky Sword Pavilion, a peak quasi-emperor like Subai was bound to become a peerless sword emperor in the future. If such a character could be controlled in their hands, it would be no less than cultivating a trump card for the sect. After understanding this, Lin Sun could not help but sneer. Sky Sword Pavilion had a good plan, but it was a pity that they dared to target him, which was simply digging their own grave. Without delay, Lin Sun began to rush at full speed. According to the memory of the thin old man, after passing through that vast battlefield and crossing many broken world plains, he would arrive at the Great Luo ancient domain. Sky Sword Pavilion was easy to find. This sect was the top sword sect in the Great Luo ancient domain, and the whole world knew it. As long as he reached the Great Luo ancient domain, he could easily find it. Just one day later, Great Luo Ancient Domain. Lin Sun entered it smoothly. Although the spiritual energy of this world is rich, it is no longer comparable to the ancient Desolation Domain, which has undergone drastic changes in the spiritual energy revival. In the past, the ancient Desolation Domain was indeed far inferior to this world. Lin Sun walked between the mountains and rivers with his hands behind his back, like a traveler. It looked like he was strolling leisurely, but in fact his speed was incredibly fast. Based on this, the reason why the Great Luo Ancient Domain has been frequently attacking the Great Wall of Imperial Pass recently is that they have realized that once the ancient Desolation Domain becomes stronger and stronger in the spiritual energy revival, it will inevitably pose a serious threat to their Great Luo Ancient Domain in the future. At the same time, if I can kill my way into the ancient Desolation Domain and plunder its territory, I can also enjoy the various opportunities and benefits brought about by the spiritual energy revival. While rushing, Lin Sun thought about it and roughly understood the intention of the Great Luo Ancient Domain to launch frequent wars in recent years. Lin Sun did not care about these things. He came here just to bring back Su Bai, his nominal disciple who had not been seen for many years. Looks like the cultivators I've seen all along the way aren't much different from the ancient Desolation region. However, the enmity between the 9 regions has been formed a long time ago, and the blood enmity that has been accumulated for countless years must be settled in the future. Along the way, Lin Sun was also observing. We passed by some cities. There was nothing special about what he saw and heard. Just like at this time, when he walked in the Great Luo Ancient Domain, even the power of heaven and earth was not much different from that of the ancient Desolation Domain. At most, it could only suppress his cultivation to the peak of the 3rd level of the Emperor Realm. And it was precisely because of this that Lin Sun predicted that in the Great Luo Ancient Domain, there was absolutely no Emperor whose cultivation exceeded the 3rd level of the Emperor Realm. P.S. Everyone, don't forget that at 8 o'clock tonight, Goldfish will give out Spring Festival red envelopes. Chapter 2477, Sky Sword Pavilion. The number 1 sword sect in the Great Luo Ancient region, known as the gathering place of thousands of swords. For countless years, Sky Sword Pavilion was like an unshakable ruler, regarded as a place of pilgrimage by countless cultivators in the Great Luo Ancient region. Green Cliff Sword Mountain, the place where Sky Sword Pavilion was located. This mountain was beautiful and majestic, shrouded in auspicious light all year round. It was regarded as the number 1 blessed land in the Great Luo Ancient region. On this day, halfway up the Green Cliff Sword Mountain, in an ancient palace on the side of cliff, a group of high-level figures of Sky Sword Pavilion gathered here. The leader was a tall and straight man in a black robe. His eyes were as sharp as swords, and he stood with his hands behind his back, exuding great majesty. Hua Yundu, the headmaster of Sky Sword Pavilion. He was also an Emperor Realm figure. Still not enough? Hua Yundu asked with a frown. A short and fat old man in a black robe shook his head. Su Bai's will is extremely tenacious and powerful. Even if we use a secret method, it's difficult to defeat his will in a short time. In this way, it's impossible to erase his memory. Hua Yundu's eyes were cold. No matter what, we must completely subdue this boy. He's the top quasi-emperor in the ancient Desolation region, and he has a rare sword bone. If we can use him, our Sky Sword Pavilion might have another peerless sword emperor in the future. Yes, the short and fat old man nodded and immediately said, "However, I'm afraid we can no longer use the secret method." Why? Hua Yundu asked. The short and fat old man in a black robe hurriedly said, "We have used the secret method to torture this boy these days. His divine soul and state of mind have long been tortured to the point of collapse. If we continue, this boy's cultivation is likely to collapse. If so, even if we can finally subdue him, I'm afraid he'll become a waste." Hua Yundu was startled and waved his hand. "Forget it. I'll give you another 10 days. As he spoke, he suddenly remembered something. "Is there any news from the army that went to the Yang Pass?" Everyone shook their heads. Someone said in a low voice, "Headmaster, it's only been 2 days." Although the Yang Pass of the ancient Desolation Realm is weak, there's still a few Emperor Realm experts guarding it. I'm afraid we can't take it down in a short time. He paused for a moment and continued. However, under the command of my heavenly sword pavilion, we've united the elite forces of over 1,000 great powers of the ancient All-Heaven region this time, and merely 9 Emperor Realm experts have been dispatched. I believe that breaking through Yang Pass won't be too far away. Everyone's spirits were lifted. Presently, the spirit energy in the ancient desolation had awakened, and signs of a great world surged into appearance. If they were able to occupy the ancient desolation, then any power of the All-Heaven ancient region would obtain an opportunity to improve their strength in all aspects. This ancient desolation realm is worthy of being the origin of all Daos. Even though it has been in ruins for countless years, once it awakens, the power it can unleash is still something that our 8 realms can't compare to. Huai Yun sighed with sorrow. Fortunately, this time, with the 8 regions' powers moving out together, no matter how strong ancient desolate regions' Imperial Pass defenses are, they will still be trampled through. At that time, just as he said this, an indifferent voice suddenly came from outside the main hall. In my opinion, you won't be able to wait until then. It was a simple sentence, but it made Huai Yundu and the other great figures of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion all change their expressions, and they rushed out of the main hall together. A tall figure had suddenly appeared beneath the distant sky, and he wore black clothes and seemed indifferent and extraordinary. "Who are you?" Huai Yundu's pupils were like lightning, glancing at Lin Sun with a dignified expression. The others also had different expressions. They didn't expect that in the great all-heaven ancient region, who would dare to come to their heavenly sword pavilion to provoke them. Lin Sun didn't answer. He just glanced at Huai Yundu and the others, and then casually waved his hand. Buzz! 1,000-meter-long sword chi swept across the sky, releasing blazing and dazzling light, illuminating the whole world and making the mountains and rivers lose their color. It slashed down. The Green Cliff Sword Mountain was covered with 64 layers of mountain guarding formations. After countless years of continuous improvement, the power of such a great formation was enough to resist a full blow from an Emperor Realm expert. Therefore, when they saw this scene, Huai Yundu and the others were stunned at first, and then they revealed expressions of absurdity. They felt that it was indescribably funny. Was this guy crazy? As a number 1 sword sect in the great all-heaven ancient region, which cultivator dared to offend them for countless years, they were completely overestimating their own strength and courting death. However, when the sword fell, the mountain guarding formation that Huai Yundu and the others regarded as indestructible was slashed apart like a piece of paper. Boom! The earth quaked, the mountains shook, and smoke and dust filled the air. At this moment, the 64 mountain guarding formations were forcefully slashed open, and a huge crack appeared in the middle. The Green Cliff Sword Mountain that was protected by the formation was slashed open, and the majestic mountain tilted and crashed down. A sword that split the mountain. Huai Yundu and the others, who were standing halfway up the Green Cliff Sword Mountain, subconsciously dodged. Although they managed to avoid this terrifying sword strike, their expressions became extremely ugly, and their eyes were filled with shock. A single sword strike had broken through the strongest defense of their sect and almost destroyed their mountain gate. How could they not understand that Lin Sun was not arrogant, but had absolute confidence and strength? On the Green Cliff Sword Mountain, there were panic screams, and countless descendants of Sky Sword Pavilion who lived there fled in horror. The scene was chaotic. After this sword strike, Lin Sun said calmly, "From today on, Sky Sword Pavilion will be removed from the world. I give you 10 breaths to think about it. Either surrender or die." The calm voice was like a hurricane sweeping across the world, which made many people's faces change. "You're courting death." A burly middle-aged man, who was a great emperor, rushed out violently. He stretched out his hand, and a torrent of sword chi, like lava, rushed towards Lin Sun. Lin Sun waved his sleeve. The light of Tao roared, rolling up countless white sword chi, filling the space between heaven and earth and covering the sky. Boom! In the earth-shattering collision sound, the burly middle-aged man let out an unwilling roar, and his whole body was swept away by the sword chi, turning into ashes. Overconfident, Lin Sun spat out a few words from his lips. The whole place was silent. Hua Yundu and others' hands and feet were cold, and they were shocked and angry. No matter how they racked their brains, they were unable to imagine when such a boundlessly terrifying figure had appeared in the ancient All-Heaven region, killing an emperor with a wave of his sleeve. This gave them a great fright. Who are you? When did Sky's Sword Pavilion provoke you? Why did you destroy our mountain gate and kill our disciples? Hua Yundu said sternly. You don't even know me, and you dare to capture my disciple. Sky's Sword Pavilion. How dare you? Lin Sun showed a sneer. Now 5 breaths had passed. The faces of Hua Yundu and others changed again. And on the Green Cliff Sword Mountain, those descendants of Sky Sword Pavilion had long been scared out of their wits. At this time, they hurriedly fled, rushing out of the mountain. Stop! All of you, stop right there. A big shot roared. But this was doomed to be in vain. The building was about to collapse. Who dare not to run for their lives? Let's kill him together. Some old monsters roared, and their eyes turned red. They rushed out together, as if they were desperate, and each of them displayed their trump cards. Struggle before death. Lin Sun grabbed the void with his palm, and a brilliant sword chi gathered and swept out. Boom! The explosion sounded like the collapse of the sky and the collapse of the earth. Those old monsters were wiped out in the blink of an eye, and their bodies and spirits disappeared like bubbles. Seeing this scene, everyone in Sky Sword Pavilion was scared out of their wits, and they completely collapsed. Those descendants fled frantically. Hua Yundu and others lost their wits, and their eyes were full of confusion. For countless years, Sky Sword Pavilion was like an unshakable ruler, standing above the great Luo ancient domain, and deterred the world. In the hearts of all living beings, they were like supreme gods that could exist for eternity. But today, just one person split a mountain with a sword, killed an emperor with a wave of his sleeve, and shook the foundation of the entire Sky Sword Pavilion. This was too terrifying. Hua Yundu and the others were completely surprised, and even until now, they still could not figure out who this person was. All of this happened too quickly. We admit defeat. Hua Yundu's lips were bitter, and his eyes were dim. I only hope that fellow cultivator will show mercy and not hurt the innocent. Everyone else was filled with sorrow. It had only been a moment, but their situation had plummeted, as if they had fallen from the sky to the mortal world. The difference, the fear, even made them feel like they were about to collapse. 10 seconds have passed, and it's too late to admit defeat now. When Lin Sun's words came out, it was like the last straw that broke the camel's back. Hua Yundu and the other higher-ups of Sky Sword Pavilion all showed a crazy look. Fight! Kill! They roared, all of them rushing out. Their eyes were scarlet red, as if they were fugitives, stimulated to the point of going mad. But it was like moths flying into a flame. Lin Sun stepped in the void, his clothes fluttering. As he moved forward, the world turned upside down, the mountains and rivers collapsed, and all kinds of profound truths turned into sharp sword chi, whistling out. Puff, puff, puff. One by one, the big shots of Sky Sword Pavilion fell, and blood dyed the void red. The breath of death continued to spread, causing the world to fall into a scene of purgatory. When Lin Sun came to the Green Cliff Sword Mountain that had already collapsed, all the higher-ups of Sky Sword Pavilion, including Hua Yundu, had died on the spot. His all-powerful and murderous stance seemed to be invincible. In the nearby area, many descendants of Sky Sword Pavilion were still fleeing in panic, one by one frightened and panicking like dogs. Lin Sun ignored these small characters. He went straight to the back mountain. In a dark and cold underground prison, he saw Su Bai. Su Bai was bathed in blood, his hair disheveled, and he sat there like a tree. There were countless sword scars on his body, and his blood seemed to have dried up. In this dark prison, he had experienced countless tortures and sufferings. If it were not for the wisps of vitality coming from him, he would be no different from a dead man. Lin Sun stepped forward. The reason why he accepted Su Bai as a registered disciple was that he had a firm temperament, and he had a sword bone, which was similar to Yun Qingbai's talent. As for how much he liked him, it was hard to say. But at this time, seeing him being tortured like this, Lin Sun could not help but frown.